welcome everyone to throughout the year school board of direction. That's the direction.
He's got a
Rapid thing every school.
Troy Carr.
Here.
Jamie Clapham.
Here.
Christine Stephenson.
Here.
Donna Moore.
Here.
Michael Berkland is absent with notice, as is Walt Swan. And Katie Urban.
Here. Second.
Troy. Jamie.
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Katie. Motion passes 5-0.
This time we have our open.
There we go. Thank you, board. My name is Florence Thompson. I'm president of South Dakota Parents Involved in Education. And I'm also a retired school psychologist with over 40 years experience in the schools as a psychologist. I'd like to talk a little bit about kindergarten. I don't know how many of you remember when Common Core started, but when Common Core came into our state, South Dakota was one of the early adopters of Common Core. And they promised that Common Core was going to narrow the achievement gap between the haves and the have-nots, and that it was going to advance, all these standards were going to advance learning for our kids to just an incredible level. So it was sold with a lot of hoopla. And like I said, one of the promises was it was going to eliminate the learning gap, the achievement gap. So what we had was they decided to use a behaviorist model with outcome-based. So it's like stimulus and response, feedback, and lots of computer processing. And they figure this is a standard behaviorist model. So that's how they planned to raise these standards. They were going to start with high school and then just step those standards back 1 year at a time down to kindergarten. So they knew exactly what to teach at every level. Now, don't think we don't have Common Core in South Dakota, because we do, okay? You know, your kids have to take a Common Core test every year. And you have to have Common Core compliant materials. Okay, so what happens is they decided that kindergarten was going to be the new first grade. So that was how they raised the standards. They started higher. They started the kindergartners at a higher level than they had before. And gee, what do you know? A lot of kids couldn't handle that. So now here we're talking about having a junior kindergarten, which I think is a wonderful idea. I want to be supportive of that. But I want us to know how we got to this point. We really, instead of helping the kids that were most needy, what we did was we kind of just upped the ante for them, raised the starting line, or put the starting line back so that they were behind when they started. So that's where we are. And no amount of behavior modification changes basic human development. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any board response to our open forum? All right, at this time, we're items for board discussion. Are you all still following, are we following the agenda order, or do you want to do it in the other order, or?
I'm going to give you an overview of our elementary programming,
Okay,
and then we're going to kind of morph things together, but you'll hear about each one of those. RCAA will probably be the last one. So we'll move through junior kindergarten. You'll hear about our virtual elementary school, and then some of our specific programming around behavior, which will also include some information from Dr. Comer, and then we'll finish with RCAA.
okay, all right, so board members just realize that it may not be in the exact order as it is on the agenda, so however Dr. Strasser presents it, that's how we'll take it. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to try and share my screen.
And I think another thing that we'll do, those of you that are presenting, it goes a little bit easier if, board members, if you have questions that you can ask them then, so it's kind of a dialogue, and sometimes we forget questions at the end, so if we interrupt you to ask a question, then
Yes.
be forewarned.
No, and that I think would be how we want this evening to go. We want to hear your questions. So as I said, I'm going to give you an overview, and we look at in this study session elementaries as innovative schools. And what we present tonight may not necessarily be the most innovative, but we think for where our district is and where we want to go in serving our students, that this is very important, and that's the terminology that we use. So tonight you're going to hear from several of our directors and some of our principals in the various programs, and I'm super excited for them all to be here and to share out tonight. So the first thing is we always have a grounding in our strategic plan, and first of all with our our student pillar, and the top purple is what our student pillar says. So you can see how we welcome, we acknowledge, we value each of our kids. We want safe environments where they can be educated and prepared to be successful. So that's our overarching student pillar, and the things that we do drive distinctly from there. So we do have a desire to reach and support all our students in the Rapid City community with a quality education. We do that, as I said, in alignment with that student pillar. One of those keys, if you break it down in the student pillar, is to reduce our student behaviors, and we talk about that in referrals, but just overall, how do we reduce our student behaviors, and that's a key target here. We want to provide appropriate support for student learning and for student growth. We want to increase learning opportunities across our elementaries. So that's a lot of what you're going to hear. Doing so tonight means bringing in additional learning opportunities. That's why we say expanded options. We want to show each student's value as unique learners in an appropriate environment. So by meeting their needs, we feel we're working towards meeting our goals and the metrics within that student pillar. So you could see, again, the middle one, measures of success. And then I think it's always good to have just another level of grounding when we talk about increasing achievement, providing quality education throughout our community. And sometimes that requires us to think and act differently in order to get the results that we know we want to see for our students. So when we think of high quality schools, we think of, it brings me to 4 key areas. We want to invest in high quality foundational learning and coherent instructional systems. We haven't talked a lot in the last 2 years about elementaries and that focus. So that's why we want to come back to that tonight. And I think we all agree there needs to be a significant investment in our youngest learners. We want to create dynamic, responsive learning environments. We know that high-performing schools emphasize excellence, equity for all learners, and they ensure that every student develops a solid learning foundation. And that can be done in different ways, and that's what we want to leverage tonight, how we can do key learning environments that have unique curriculum, that they have the resources that they need to be successful, that there's excellent teacher training, expert instruction, and then timely assessments. So all those things factor into the work that we're sharing out. And we know that this is done, even though we're talking about specific programs tonight, these are things that we value across all our elementaries because that's how you have alignment and coherence in instruction and programming. The third one talks about increasing those opportunities with gateways to learning. That's really how we organize learning. And we have to look at not just our schedules, but for example, this is one of the reasons we're talking about virtual elementary school tonight. There are different ways to organize how we learn and do learning. And then the support, we're always looking for how do we bring different levels of support regardless of what the need is, what is the appropriate support that encourages student growth and allows for academic learning to occur. And I think those are the things, these listed here are quality traits of high performing schools. And that's what we attain to as we walk through this evening.
Dr. Strasser?
Yes.
Are you going to go into more, I'm sure you're going into more detail.
Yes.
I don't, but I'm particularly interested in coherent instruction systems, just in, because I have heard from teachers sometimes that the way things are taught in one school is different from the other. So how you go about doing that, if that's later on in the presentation.
That's that might be a whole nother study session, but I think when you just on the surface, when you look at how we deliver curriculum and what those curriculum expectations are, I want you to see it in the programs that we talk about tonight, and maybe it'll answer some, or maybe you'll ask more questions. I think that's fair. Hopefully you'll see some of that in our junior kindergarten and how they're delivering curriculum and how that moves across those programs into first grade and then so forth.
Okay.
Wrong button. Why is it not? There we go. Just a quote for you to ponder that I think personifies our proposals tonight. Again, high performing schools, emphasis on our youngest learners. All right, I wanted to give a brief overview of kind of where our district is. This is not all encompassing, but it does show you some of the supports regarding alternative options. And I first shared out a similar graphic a year ago when we talked about RCAA, and I wanted to bring this back just as a general reminder so you understand and have a better sense of where we're at as a district. But the alternative programs, from Eagles Path to the online high school, the high school prep, which is our middle school discovery program, the Fresh Start program, which is a transition for those coming from JDC back into the district, and our GED program. Those are all opportunities our kids have. And you can notice that they're all middle to high school oriented. Some of the resources we use in our district, we follow a philosophy around conscious discipline, and that's primarily a K-8 emphasis for our district. We've brought in the discovery curriculum, which you'll hear about more with RCAA. Last year, we really looked at responsibility centered discipline and how our predominantly our our high schools, secondary schools can benefit from that type of training and learning. We always follow our behavior matrix, and we're looking at expanding positive behavior coaching and support that way. Our trainings, we do an annual behavior refresh in the summer. We meet with our admin, we train them. A lot of the resources also parlay into trainings. And then, of course, we're doing some diligent work around coordination with the OCR agreement. So Again, just a broadside view of our supports and programs. So where we get into expanded programming for the elementary, again, on the academic side, looking at our junior kindergarten elementary programs. You've heard me talk about our Children's Home Society, and that program is starting hopefully March 31st, and one piece of the puzzle. And then we have what we're currently calling a behavior reset, and that's another new behavior program that is not a children's home, and it's not currently something that we offer, but it is specifically for working with student behaviors. So you'll learn some details about that tonight. Alternatively, we have the virtual elementary school. And then from a special ed standpoint, Dr. Comer will talk about the TEACH program, which is for autistic students. And then some of the things that we're going to do with our preschools. So there's the broad view. I didn't want to keep you waiting, so showed that for you. And then I wanted to jump right to this one because programs and alternative options need facilities. And one of the burning questions is, what are we doing with Kib and Custer? And much like RCAA is the facility for our high school, middle school alternative programs, we believe Kib and Custer is an opportunity for us to utilize that facility to do elementary expanded programs. So to give you an overview, I put what the outline of Kib and Custer is. And if you start in the bottom left, classrooms 10 and 11, our proposal tonight is to move 2 of our preschool sections out of Pinedale and out of Rapid Valley is what we're currently proposing. Again, that could be subject to change, but that's what we're looking at. And those would go in 10 and 11. In classrooms 12 and 14, kind of the top left area, that's where we're looking at a behavior reset program. Again, we'll share out that information a little bit later. Across the hall into classrooms 13 and doesn't show on mine, is that 15? Okay. So that's where that TEACH program would be for our students with autism. We've got, of course, the multi-purpose room. And then in the bottom right, there aren't any numbers, but that's where we would operate our virtual elementary school. So utilizing every piece of this. And one of the key things is when you put elementary kids in, they have to have space, they have to be able to move. We feel that multi-purpose room is great for that. We've got some plans in place. I've been working with our facilities manager, you all know Jade, and we've been looking at putting some elementary based playground directly outside of the classrooms, which would be on that west side, I believe, outside of 10, 11, 12, and 14. They're not going to be huge play areas, but they're going to be nice fenced in play areas for our students. We know that we need some facility upgrades. It's a great time to do it because there's currently nobody in there, and we've got an opportunity to make some minor changes just to get it in place for elementary students and the way we want to use it. And then down kind of on that bottom part where it's resources, like number 9, there are spaces for some of our teachers, our what's the word I'm looking for? Resource.
Special education.
No, that's not it. It'll come back. Yes, related services. Sorry, couldn't get that out. So we've got space for this, and that's how we're looking at utilizing this facility. Yes.
I do too.
Do you
Go
think,
back to the other slide.
Well, I would love to if I can figure out how to do that. Okay, sorry.
do you think you'll have this, like all of the playground updates and all the changes that you're gonna make to Kibben ready to go by the fall?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, these programs that are gonna be in these classrooms, are they pressure release from the other elementary schools or brand new program?
So the preschool programs are existing. So the reason we want to utilize this space is because if we do take from Rapid Valley, there's a distinct need for space there. If we take from Pinedale, there's a need for space there. And so it alleviates, but it's not new students. The virtual elementary school is for any student. So it can be students within our district, it can be students not currently in our district. And we will promote it as an opportunity for the Rapid City community. Any parent and who wants to or needs their student to have the experience of virtual education, we want to be able to provide that. That's our ultimate goal. Obviously, we have to take small steps to move in that direction and get it established. But that's where we're going. And then the behavior reset and the teach are brand new programs.
Okay.
So yeah, we currently don't offer that for our students. So between those two and Children's Home, those are opportunities for our students in our district that for various reasons, maybe, right now they're not having success in their current setting. And this is an opportunity to work with them more specifically.
All right, so tonight, is this presentation informational and then being brought back to the board for official approval? This is the first time that I've heard
Yes.
this tonight. So tonight's just informational.
Yeah.
And then it'll be brought back more
Yes.
formally.
Yes, because I'm asking for things, so I'll need your approval as I ask for those things.
All right. That's what I kind of thought.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
So again, I thought you'd want to see this right away. Hopefully it gives you a good visual of the things being shared. So when we look at, lost my track here, things that I'm going to ask for. Staffing, so in general, we expect that to do all the things that I've outlined, we need 4 general ed teachers, 2 special ed teachers. We're going to add an administrator, and we'll probably need clerical and some related services. How much of this we can utilize of current existing, I'm not sure. Fully flesh these things out, but this is what we expect at the moment. I've talked to Mr. Sassy about what our needs are, so he is aware, and I think this is an appropriate approach. When you look at our preschool, since that is existing, that is not reflected in the staffing needs because we already have that in place. To run these programs, we're going to run them all through Meadowbrook as the entity, and therefore that's why Ms. Hogenkamp is here tonight. So she's going to be the administrator overseeing these programs, and of course anything that involves special education, Dr. Comer and her team are involved in. But in order to operate both Meadowbrook and these programs, we felt it was appropriate to request an additional administrator. And when you look at the size of Meadowbrook, plus it is a district, it has district special ed rooms in it. I feel that those are appropriate requests. From a curriculum standpoint, we're going to utilize the Edgenuity. That's going to be our main piece for the virtual elementary school. It is consistent with how we deliver virtual education currently. It's not going to be the end all be all, but that is going to be our core. We're looking at different behavior programs. You may have heard of programs like Boys Town. Programs like Discovery Curriculum are going to be in line with what we're looking at, but we will nail that down here in the near future. And then, of course, we'll go through some training for every piece of the programs. And as I said, on the preschool side, both of those are being relocated and allow for space opportunities at the schools that they're currently at.
Dr. Strasser, can you tell me the admin role, is that gonna be a principal
It would be an assistant principal
working under
that would work
Meadowbrook?
under Ms. Hogenkamp,
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
okay.
Go ahead.
So the virtual program, Edgenuity, you said it's not the end all be all. Is there something supplementing that? Are the teachers going to supplement that curriculum, or what does that look like?
You'll share some of that.
Okay.
Yeah, if
Thank
you
you.
could just
I'll wait.
hold that question, that would be great.
All right, so I see the requests of what you need.
Mhm.
Are there, since this has to obviously fit into the budget, are there any numbers with these requests?
Those are the things that, when I talked to Mr. Sassy, about, so he's aware in order to have that within the budget.
So he's crunching numbers.
Yes.
And when are we gonna be presented with the number?
Probably in finance committee. And then when I bring this back for formal approval to move forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
All right. So, in order for us to move forward, obviously, we're gonna have to hire a few positions. We wanna, communicate out. We wanna work with our principals on what these things will look like and how they, can support, their buildings and their students. And then, you're gonna learn more tonight. Future steps, we're gonna, facility upgrades, we're gonna train staff, all those things. So, I just wanted to hopefully get some of those burning questions out there and let you ponder those as we walk through things. So that is what I have as an overview, and I'm gonna turn it over unless you have any other questions for me right now.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Ms. Strong, which means I need to stop sharing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I look forward to sharing with you tonight our junior kindergarten progress. Along with co-presenting is Director Roberts and three amazing principals that will be sharing their data regarding our junior kindergarten program from this year. We're very excited about those results. The principals are very excited about the results, and we're also excited to move forward. Director Roberts, would you like to start?
So just a reminder, what is junior kindergarten? Junior kindergarten is a program for learners who meet the age criteria for kindergarten, but academically and socially aren't quite ready yet. Junior kindergarten allows learners to experience more academic success by giving them a more solid foundation prior to entering kindergarten. And RCAS is piloting junior kindergarten this year at General Beadle, South Park, and Valley View.
So a little bit of research behind supporting the needs of junior kindergarten. I have some handouts of our PowerPoint. I'll pass those out. Would you pass those? Thank you. So you guys have all of this research at your fingertips in case you want to go look more at it. We know that there's more emerging evidence with the uptick in the developmental delays and challenging behaviors post-COVID. We know there's a bubble, this COVID baby bubble that is entering schools nationwide. That's going to be about a 3 to 4 year span. We're seeing the first year of this COVID baby bubble in our kindergarten right now. There's a tremendous amount of research nationwide that looks at this COVID baby bubble, that we know that these kiddos are developmentally delayed socially and emotionally. They experience high levels of anxiety as well as aggression and outbursts. And so what you'll learn from our principals tonight is that having this junior kindergarten class to teach kiddos how to school, we say, teach them how to school. They come into the junior kindergarten classes and it's really a matter of exposure. Here's how we share. Here's how we use words to express our needs. There's some conscious discipline and emotional conversations occurring with our kiddos. We know that according to 2 studies in the Rhode Island Hospital, if you look at that first or the last bullet point, we know that babies born during the pandemic vocalize and engage in verbal interactions much less than the pre-pandemic counterparts. There's several different studies out that suggest that might be due to screen time post-COVID, that might be due to different protection measures that parents are putting into place post-COVID. We know that there's a tremendous amount of studies regarding masks and that babies born during the pandemic are mirroring very similar social interactions as babies that were born in the 1800s during the bubonic flu because the mask was covered. They're having a difficult time understanding social cues. So part of what we're learning in junior kindergarten is how to be a member of a community outside their own home walls. And these classes are very small, they're structured, and there's a lot of interaction occurring, not just learning colors and shapes and those types of things, but really learning how to be human in those studies as well, or in those capacities as well. So if you look at the last slide regarding, there's a lot of research on there to support that. But we also know too that post-pandemic that we have the largest number of families experiencing poverty in the nation right now since the Great Depression in the 30s, even larger than what we experienced during the recession in 2008. And because we have these families, this large amount of families that are experiencing homelessness, that are experiencing poverty, our kiddos are not exposed to social cues, they're not exposed to different types of appropriate learning and social interactions. These are all compounding and kind of creating this perfect storm right now where our junior kindergarten classes provide that opportunity for intervention. So if you look at the last bubble, the most recent research shows that we as a nation have this bubble that we're going to actually be addressing this 3 to 4 year bubble for the next 15 plus years because they're going to go through our system. Where if we provide that early intensive intervention now, it is very possible to turn around and recover from that leg if we provide the appropriate and intense intervention to our junior kindergarten class, really allowing them to be successful members of their education community moving forward. Any questions on the statistics or research? Okay, we have some amazing principals that would like to share their progress to date and their exciting success. So, Ms. Karn.
All right, so at General Beetle, we have had 12 students in our junior kindergarten program all year. We started with around 15, but a couple have dropped. One actually was an ESL or an ELL student who ended up not coming back after the Christmas break. And so that's kind of why our number has been sitting at 12. At the beginning of the year, all students came in pretty much knowing 0 to 6 letters. That would include uppercase and lowercase. Currently, and meeting the end of the year goals, 9 out of those 12 know 26 out of 52, which would include those uppercase and lowercase letters. And so that's been huge progress compared to at the flip side of our other traditional kindergarten classes are still at about that, but these kids really, with that small intensive group, have really made huge gains. Again, number ID, which is just identifying those numbers. All students came in knowing 0 to 3 numbers, and now know 8 out of 12 students know 0 to 10 numbers. So these students would typically still be way below grade level, but for junior kindergarten are already meeting that end of the year benchmark. Attendance typically is an issue with our students in this class. So 4 students of those 12 have 10 to 12 days of absences, but are still making huge growth. Whereas 3 students have 20 plus days, but are still making really good growth compared to our students in our traditional classes that have 20 5 kids, those students that have 20 days are still ones across the board. So they're way below basic and are not making as much growth. But these students that have attendance issues in that smaller class are making lots of growth. So that's been positive. So talking with my kindergarten team, we've kind of come up with some pros and cons. The pros would be, actually, I didn't call them cons. I call them opportunities, but pros would be that smaller class size that focuses on those routines of school and those really fine motor skills that we are really starting to see across the board. Cutting things, kids don't do those things a lot. We have tablets where we use our fingers, so holding that pencil grip is really, we're really starting to see a huge struggle across the board. We have a lot more time to focus on those social skills. Those feeling buddies, lessons from conscious discipline have probably been the biggest gain that my teacher has seen. And my other kindergarten teachers are like, can I have that? Because we've just seen such a huge growth in them recognizing emotions and being able to communicate those out. And it truly just goes at a slower pace of academics, those fine motor skills and those social skills. Where we see opportunity, those larger we have larger of our sections in traditional kindergarten. So whereas we would have had 4 traditional sections, we only have the 3. So our class sizes, if we would have stuck with the 4, would have been more around that 20, which I know 5 doesn't seem like a lot of 5 and 6-year-olds, but in 5 and 6-year-olds, 5 extra bodies in a room really is like 10. So that's been just an opportunity. Like, I wish we could balance out still keeping our 4 traditional sections in addition to our 5th section of junior kindergarten. But space and FTEs always become that issue. And last year there was such a quick turnaround in the fall. So there was a lack of parent buy-in. So I'm hoping this year that we have enough information and notice that we'll be able to get that communicated out to our families and get more parent buy-in in that capacity. Any questions on those? Okay. And my last slide.
Oh, I had a question. Sorry,
Sure.
you
Nope.
can't see my hand.
Yes.
Hi, Ms. Karn. Sorry.
Hi.
I was wondering, you were talking about the absences. Do you see I mean, this is subjective, I guess, but like parents sort of perceiving like, well, this is free school, and so like the focus on attendance is a little less strenuous, or do you feel like it's pretty similar to the cohort that would be in standard kindergarten?
I would say that in general, kindergarten families, I don't think see the importance of sending their kid to kindergarten. And I think we still have a lot as a community to increase our capacity on the importance of kindergarten and sending your kid to school and still having it be learning. I think that that's still a huge learning curve for our community in general.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So my last slide is just a quote. So this parent actually had a kiddo in traditional she actually has 4 kiddos in our building, but she had a student in kindergarten last year who we pushed on to 1st grade and has truly really struggled all of 1st grade. And so this student, her last one, she really was excited about having her child participate in the junior kindergarten, but she just says, my child has picked up on so many skills that my daughter currently, or that would be in 1st grade, did not have at this time of year. She can name all her letters, she can count by 10s, and is beginning to sound out words. I really wish this program would have been available for my other daughter who really struggled in kindergarten and is still having difficulties in 1st grade. I did ask her, like, what advice would you give to parents who are on the fence of putting their child into a junior kindergarten program? And she said, don't feel bad that your child is behind, because in the end, they make up so much more and truly love school. And so I think that that's really important to really get our parents on board. And I would say that was probably our biggest struggle at Beetle, was that parents felt like that they were sending them unprepared, and that's not bad to send them unprepared, but this is an opportunity to get them caught up and not leave such a huge gap.
Jamie, do you still have your hand up? Okay, Ms. Durbin.
So I'm guessing because we didn't super heavily promote this,
Mhm.
that the answer is no, but did you have any families that knew about junior kindergarten and said, hey, can my kid be in junior kindergarten? I think they'd be more successful. And in the future, if we're able to promote that and that's a request of a parent and you monitor them and see that maybe they don't need it, is that an option?
So I'm gonna go back to your first question. Yes, we only had maybe one, and that was that one parent that was like, yeah, my kid, I want them in there. Based off of the criteria, she still did qualify. Your second part was, are we gonna allow parent requests? I think absolutely. Parents know their kids the best. As a parent myself and as a parent who, if I would have had an opportunity to put my kid in a JK, I absolutely would have. And so I think, but I also know the importance of kindergarten and the importance of what it can do. And so I think we just still need to educate our community on the importance of kindergarten. And it's not just, as she kind of pointed out, it's not just playtime anymore, unfortunately. I wish it was, but it's not anymore, so.
Well, and I think that there are a lot of families, if we were able to expand this, which would increase our enrollment and therefore we could have more FTE, hopefully, that would choose this if it was available, almost as if it's preschool.
Yeah.
Because they don't have preschool options in this community, or not a lot of
Correct.
them.
There's not a lot of high, I would say, going back to what Dr. Strasser has stated, high quality in preschool programs. I think hopefully bringing back, and maybe Dr. Comer is going to speak on this, but hopefully bringing back our integrated kids into our preschool program will hopefully increase that as well. But I think it really comes down to access and capacity of the importance of kindergarten and not believing that it's just a playtime. Like they do learn, have to learn a lot. And I do think like even trying to educate, I think we have this notion that they need to know their name and they need to know their letters. No, those are things that they will learn by the end of kindergarten. And so I think there's been a shift when we went to the Common Core that they've got to know all these things before they come in. No, it's still okay if they don't know anything. But we still need to give them the proper tools to get there.
One more, I'm sorry. Were there any kids that you said, oh, I don't think they need to be in here, and I think we can move them up? And are there, these kids will then definitely go to kindergarten next
Yeah.
year. They're not going to first grade.
So are you asking, are there kids in our, of those 12, are there
Mhm.
some that like by Christmas time who were like, oh man, I wish we would have
Yes.
moved them? Maybe 2. I mean, socially, they picked up on a lot of things. Academically, they still weren't picking stuff up. But even my teacher was like, I don't know, like there's just the magic of after Christmas, they came back and she's like, they knew so much. Like, I don't know what happened. But that light bulb just kind of goes on. But I really think that smaller class size has probably given us our most bang for our buck. Because they're kids who just need to learn, as Strong said, like learn how to do school. Like this is how we come to school and sit on the carpet and like we don't just all rush in and get what we want, so.
Ms. Stephenson.
Just to follow up, I could imagine too that the smaller class size combined with everybody being at about the same level
Mhm.
and not like a quarter of the kids super bored because they already know the
Yeah.
alphabet on the first day of kindergarten.
Yeah.
My question was, is there the opportunity to have flexibility where you had room for 15 and you went down to 12? Is that right? No.
We had room for up to 18. It was really hard to get that parent buy-in. I
Yeah.
mean, I felt like I was practically like selling myself, like, come join us. You're
Shoot.
gonna
So
love it. And I will say, like, there are probably 4 kids that, one, now have attendance issues, have that 20 days in our traditional programs, who we did recommend for junior kindergarten, who have not made progress, and who we are now going to be recommending for retention based off of that 20 days. Because that 20 days, we can say, like, because you have not come to school, you will need to repeat. So now I just wonder, right, like if they would have chosen to go to junior kindergarten, would they be in that same spot? What
right,
if?
and is it possible to create the flexibility where like you identify these kids with 20 absences by January, call the parents, say, no matter what, your kid's repeating, can we move them down into junior K? We've got 4 open
Yeah,
spots.
and I don't know what the law would state or what our waiver would allow, that I would defer to Strong.
Mhm.
Yes, you're welcome.
Appreciate it. Right now, as it stands, in order for any school district in the state to operate a junior kindergarten, we have to apply and accept a waiver with the Department of Education. Because according to the student count, we're allowed 13 years in school, and then past that 13 years of school, then we start going into not counting for it counts against us for graduation, it counts us against us for all these different things. So in order for us to have 14 years of school, we have to have a junior kindergarten waiver. So some of that flexibility is not within our control because the state mandates and controls those numbers towards graduation. So we have to be really careful when our professionals whom we trust are making the recommendation for junior kindergarten, that they feel very strongly that this is a student who can benefit from a year-long program in junior kindergarten, knowing that there's always going to be those that excel past Christmas and then do really well, but also knowing too that that extra year is never going to hurt anybody also. And knowing that we have that support from parents and that buy-in. There'll always be that exception to the rule at Christmas time, somebody should be, but we also are not going to recommend anybody enter first grade after junior kindergarten because they have not completed, according to the state of South Dakota, the first grade standards, or excuse me, the kindergarten standards that they must complete in order to move forward into that program. Also, part of the criteria is we do not accept anybody under the age of 5 into the junior kindergarten program, because if they're under the age of 5, they do not count towards our ADM. And so we want them to be on the student count. And so we still receive funding for them, but that extra year of school does not count against them or the school, the district, towards the graduation numbers.
So the waiver is, we got a waiver to have 3 junior K classrooms this year.
We got a waiver to have junior kindergarten in Rapid City area schools.
Was there a max in the number of classrooms and
Nope.
the number of students?
Nope, there's
And-
no max. The waiver simply says junior kindergarten, Rapid City area schools can operate under the auspice of having junior kindergarten. So for instance, we're having new, as we roll this out, we'll be welcoming more and more elementary schools to host junior kindergarten based on the need that they see, and we'll go over that in a few slides. But because they're joining us, we don't have to apply for a new waiver every year. So now we have school A, B, and C, they're gonna join us too, and school D, E. Every school does not have a waiver. Rapid City Area School District 54 or 51-4 has a junior kindergarten waiver. So in 2 years, for instance, General Beadle might decide we actually can't and don't need to operate a junior kindergarten this year because we don't have the numbers and the data for entrance for our kindergartners doesn't show that we have the need. So we're not going to just operate a junior kindergarten room just because if we don't have the need. So it gives our schools flexibility from year to year, as well as the district from year to year, to bring in more junior kindergarten classrooms, depending on the need, the data, the timing, the spacing, all of those things. To answer your question, Christine?
Yeah. Thank you.
And I would say too, just promoting it, I think we're in a better spot this year. Like, I host the Kindergarten Transition Resource Fair put on by the Statewide Family Engagement Center. So, we'll be able to kind of showcase that we have this program available. A lot of families attend that, from every school within the Rapid City area school. So that'll be one opportunity that we weren't able to promote last year at this time. So we'll be able to do that this year.
Let me ask for clarification.
Sure.
Once a child starts junior kindergarten at the beginning of the year, they stay in it for the whole year. They can't graduate out to kindergarten?
Correct.
Okay, I thought I heard. Okay.
Yeah, and we do, I mean, we do have one student that has really excelled, and is really, exceeding the benchmarks of what is in there. So we do send that student over during win time to kinder to boost and enrich him, but socially, he definitely, you can go in and see which one they are, because they still just don't fit in and socially interact like his other peers do that are slightly older, so unfortunately.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
All right, well, good evening, board, and thank you for supporting junior kindergarten, and district direction leaders, thank you guys for also supporting junior kindergarten. I'm really excited that elementary, we have our own night here. It's pretty cool. Usually there's so much high school and secondary, but hey, it's all about elementary tonight, right? So the first slide, you can actually see our junior kindergarten classroom. You can see the teacher sitting there in front of the students, and the adult in the back is our junior kindergarten parapro. And with these two running the show, we've had a lot of success, and I'm excited to share the data. We have 18 currently in our junior kindergarten program. And then President Carr, you asked about graduating out. There is a window of opportunity that if you feel that you made the wrong decision, hey, you know, we can swap. We've had a kid go from traditional into junior kindergarten, and a student going from junior kindergarten back into the traditional kindergarten. But it has to happen relatively quickly, and at least for now, right? Yes. All right, so that's the first picture, and here's some data I'd like to share with you. The left is the letters and sounds, and we're looking at 21 to 26 correct. So the beginning of the year is blue, and you'll notice some of those don't have any blue, which means there was 0 at that time. So at the beginning of the year, for capital letters, we had 11% that could name sound 21 to 26. Now, at mid-year, we have 78% who can do that. Lowercase letters, similar at the beginning of the year, 0. Now 78%. Letters and sounds, 21 to 26 correct. And then letter sounds is the last one. We have 61%. Then you look over more on the math side. The first one is orally counting. So the percentage that can count to at least 20. In the beginning, we had 10%. Now we have 29%. Identifying numbers 1 to 10. In the beginning, 0. And mid-year, 67%. And then identifying shapes, and these are all 5 of the 2D shapes, 0 at the beginning of the year, and 61% now. And then we'll move into behavior skills and readiness for kindergarten. I do have more data to share, but I wanted to save that for last because I'm rather excited about it and might lead to some discussion. So these are observations from the junior kindergarten teacher and the parapro. So due to the slower pace of the curriculum and having a paraprofessional, there was more time to address behaviors through emotional regulation strategies and goal setting. And the behaviors have decreased in severity and length of time spent addressing them. And we have seen tremendous behavior growth, which will allow these students to focus on the more rigorous learning expected of them in regular kindergarten. All right. Now, you'll have to hang with me because this might be a little difficult to explain. So the first set of data is percentages of students at or above end of year kindergarten skills. And we're comparing, and we're looking at February WIN data. That is the first set. And the second set is looking at WIN data without the junior kindergartners in that set. So the first two is traditional kindergarten and junior kindergarten. So last year, we had 24% that were at or above end of year kindergarten skills at the midpoint. This year, with junior kindergarten and regular kindergarten, we have 32%. Similarly with math, 24% last year to 31%. So we've even seen growth when we're including all the kindergarten. Now I want you to look at this next side. This is really telling, I thought, and I wasn't necessarily expecting this, but this is just looking at the traditional kindergarten students. So if you look at the reading only, last year, 24% were at or above end of year skills. This year, 65% are. And in math, very similar, 24%, and then 48%. So if those trend lines continue, we've got some exciting things to talk about. Over on the right-hand side, this is just regular kindergarten, the percent of students proficient or above. And this is on our Acadience assessment data. So junior kindergarten does not take this assessment. So this is just our traditional kindergarten. And it's comparing last year to this year. So last year, we were at 41% proficient. And at the same time this year, we're at 63%. Also in math, we were at 44%. This year, at the same point in time, we're at 66%. So I just want to say a few closing remarks and then see if you have any questions. But we talked about comparing this to preschool, and I really feel strongly that this is a way better option than preschool because the students are there all day in a kindergarten setting, learning how to do kindergarten and getting a slow entrance into the skills and the behavior. And we've seen a lot of growth. And next year, they will be ready for traditional kindergarten. The first slide that I showed you, if all of our kindergartners came in knowing those things, we'd be pretty excited because we don't currently. Also, you know, I was thinking about a question you asked President Carr about all the things that we're talking about tonight. Yes, does this relieve pressure? And I strongly believe that all these things have the potential to relieve pressure for schools, classroom teachers, administration, and just junior kindergarten, for example. You look at the junior kindergartners, all 18 of those are getting exactly what they need at exactly the right pace. But what the data shows here, what it suggests is that the traditional kindergartners can move at a much faster pace than before we had junior kindergarten. And the kindergarten teachers have confirmed that they are about twice as far in the year with their teaching and the content that they're teaching. So they're moving at a much faster rate. And I really feel that we have an opportunity to drastically change the teaching, learning, achievement experience for a whole generation of kids. If we could offer every student in Rapid City that needed junior kindergarten, if we could provide that for them, it would change the trajectory of them going all the way through school. Because I'm anticipating our kindergartners this year, they're going into first grade really ready. Where before, well, we maybe had to retain a bunch. Some, you know, we didn't want to retain them all. So some went on and the gaps were getting bigger. And so I'm really excited about this data and I can't wait to see if it continues. And just, you know, one more final plug is we, you know, at South Park and as our district is, you know, exploring more and implementing more, we really use a structured literacy approach based on the science of reading. So it really gears into what these kids need, and it's based on brain research. So we're able to teach the kids how to read so much better than we ever were before. So that's all I have. Sorry if I took up too much time.
All right, Ms. Stephenson.
Thanks for this data. That's awesome. It's truly awesome. So you're saying you think the only K scores aren't that much higher just because those 18 students weren't there.
Yes, because when those 18 students were mixed in, and teachers won't leave anybody behind. So it sometimes slows the whole train down.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's nobody's fault. That's just reality. But in this kind of situation, it almost creates more of a private school type situation because those junior kindergartners aren't in the mix. But unlike private school, we're taking care of the needs of those junior kindergartners, where maybe private schools, they just wouldn't get to go. So that's a plug for public education as well.
Thanks, we appreciate that. I wondered if the other kindergarten teachers are as excited about junior K, like as the junior K teacher or as you are when you see this data. Are they also thrilled with this program?
Yes, absolutely. At South Park, they are, and they still work collaboratively as a team. So the junior kindergarten teacher and the para, they meet weekly and they focus on data and what the needs of the students are. And, you know, it's just one big team, and it really has alleviated a lot of pressure for those kindergarten teachers so they can move at a faster clip.
And will you need another kindergarten teacher next year to take these 18 kids? Or will class sizes be bigger next year?
Well, they're big now. I mean, our kindergarten rooms are almost at 25, and we have 18 in the junior kindergarten.
25.
But to the kindergarten, for the kindergarten teachers, it's worth it to have a few more if they have more students in their room that are ready for the learning.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then almost definitely you'll need another kindergarten section next year. You can't take the 18 and add them to 25.
No, 25 are moving on. So.
Right, but
on the
then if
first-
next year, if you have 3 kindergarten classes with 25.
Yeah, and that's where Tom.
18.
Yeah, and that's where Tom
K.
Stewart comes in. He's
Okay.
magic at
I suppose we won't
predicting
know,
those
but
live birth rates and
the
and what we're gonna
potentiality
need.
is there that you'll.
It could
that you'll
be,
need to-
and if we had a big year of an influx of kindergarten students, we might need to add another section or look at. No, I'm definitely afraid of the kindergarten students. I can only take them for small bits.
Ms. Stephenson, like with all our levels, we look at enrollment trends and we develop projections. We take our junior K into context with our kindergarten. So they're factored in when we look at the sections that we need across the district.
Right.
Okay, but those 18 are still gonna be kindergartners next year.
Yes.
Okay.
But there's more kids that are coming next year that will also be in junior K. So it kind of evens out.
Yeah,
Okay, got it. I think
Yes.
I'm missing that in my math. Thank you.
and at South Park, we've fluctuated throughout the years with 2 sections of kindergarten, 3 sections. Same with first grade and second grade. So I believe Robbinsdale has a similar situation. So every year we're asking a teacher to graciously change grade levels, and they've been wonderful so far.
Thanks. I appreciate you walking me through that math. That wasn't working out in my head. Thank you.
Mrs. Clapton.
Yes, thank you so much, for your presentation too. This is just a logistical question, kind of. Do you, as the building leader, how is it decided which teacher is junior K, and will that rotate? Or do you think like the junior K teacher would stay the junior K teacher, or what does that look like?
Well, that was the plan. Unfortunately, our junior kindergarten teacher is going down the road a little ways east, and that's unfortunate. But she was going to stay in junior kindergarten, and I just met with the team last year when the idea came up to do this, and we looked at their skill set and their openness to it, and we found one that stepped up and said, you know, I'm be happy to do this. So I think I've already found my next year's junior kindergarten teacher who will be working with Rose, who is our amazing parapro in that position. If she had a teaching degree, I would hire her tomorrow to be a classroom teacher. That's how good she is. So, you know, you work with what you have, and we're going to be set to be really successful next year.
Thank you so much.
If I may interject, just to provide some clarification, the junior kindergarten team, which consisted of several principals and directors and teachers, chose a curriculum resource for junior kindergarten that is a national research-based curriculum resource that aligns to the goals and objectives of kindergarten readiness for our junior kindergarten. And it's not a go and slow or slow and go or loud and slow or whatever it is. It really has a different focus to provide intervention and differentiated instruction to meet the needs of those each individual kiddos in that classroom. So it's not necessarily that it's just a slower kindergarten. It really is a completely different resource to provide academic and social and emotional needs of each one of those kiddos. So I just want to provide that differentiation as well, that it's just not a slow kindergarten. It really, our kindergarten, junior kindergarten teachers really had to step up and learn an entirely new resource and assessment tools to be successful in this classroom, to do what's best for those kiddos. So I forgot to say that at the beginning. My apologies.
Yeah, and similarly, the junior kindergarten teachers do not have quite the pressure to meet the rigor of kindergarten standards, because they can take it a little slower. So that's a little pressure off of that. But yes, they have to learn a lot of new things. And just one final comment about this evening. This is really exciting. I believe with all these innovative ideas that it helps our district really compete when we have things out there, vouchers, school choice, when we're competing for students. These options are just wonderful, and it makes us look really desirable place to get into. So thank you.
Principal Hoffman was not able to be with us tonight, and so she's got a pilot program at Valley View as well. So please bear with me while I share the information about Valley View. One thing I would add about junior kindergarten is the goal of junior kindergarten is at the end of that to have the students be fully kindergarten ready. And so it is not, as we were saying, it's not re-teaching kindergarten, but it does have that different goal to make sure that they are have the really, really solid foundation to be super successful in kindergarten and really launch them into their academic careers from the best foundation possible. Valley View had 16 junior kindergarten Vikings, and she says they are progressing in ways that are not always easily measured. There's substantial growth in social and emotional development. It increases in tolerance for undesired and or academic tasks because, you know, coming from a home situation where you have a little more choice, you know, that's kind of a transition into kindergarten. It also is increasing in attention span and time on task, increasing self-regulation and coping skills, confidence, compromise and friendships, independence and communication skills. They are seeing decreases in quantity, duration, and frequency of tantrums and dysregulation. They are seeing decreases in anxiety about academics and social conflicts. At Valley View, the current progress of the academic goals is also very exciting and encouraging. Of letter naming, they're seeing that 15 of them already met the end of year goals for junior kindergarten, and one of them is approaching. For phonological awareness, which is some of those really important pre-reading skills, 7 of them have met the end of year goals and 5 of them are approaching. For counting, 8 of them already meet the end of year goals and 5 of them are approaching. And for emergent writing skills, which is new this semester when they really started in with that, 6 of them are meeting the end of year goals and 6 of them are approaching. Next year, we are adding Meadowbrook again, Principal Hogenkamp. And so if you want to go ahead here in just a minute, and there are some other schools that are interested in phasing into junior kindergarten. The school administrators want to be very strategic in their implementation. They want to make sure that they have staffing, a teacher, a kindergarten one who is willing to provide for junior K, because that's something we haven't had. They're really looking at the timing of how things are working out, the space specific to each individual facility and what they've got and what they can work with, and then the need based on their school data.
I have a question. So, right now it's voluntary need-based for each elementary school to have a, junior K. So it would not make sense for a board to say we would like junior K in every elementary school.
Well, and that certainly is our goal, is that we're moving to adding more junior kindergartens.
Okay.
But there is a part in the cycle of a school in readiness. And certainly, even if we said we want every single school to have junior kindergarten right now, of the teachers that are there, because these are students that are kindergarten age. So we're not adding extra kids in, but we are working with the kids that are ready for school. So we have to make sure that one of our teachers has the skills and is willing to teach junior kindergarten. And that's quite a shift. And then we need to make sure that the timing is right for that building and that they actually have facilities that support it, can support that, because we know down the line that does shift in classrooms. Right now, it's the same number of kids, but what does that look like and, you know, what we're able to do? And then really they are looking at their school data, and some buildings truly do not have the same level of need.
Okay, thank you.
And we've been looking at the rollout program, knowing that we want to roll this out right, and we want to roll it out well, so that we're setting the schools up for success. And we don't feel we have the capacity to roll it out in every single elementary school and support every single elementary school in rolling this out successfully. So if we can roll this out in phases and make sure that the ones that are up and running, we can support them, and then they're successful and they can run their own, and then the next phase and the next phase. We just don't have the staff to support that district-wide, to have a successful rollout. If we're gonna do this right, we wanna do it right, we wanna do it well.
All right, makes sense to me. Thank you. Mrs. Urban.
And I guess I would think that eventually we will have more kids, that we're adding more kids, and that those parents that said, I'm gonna keep my kid home until, because they're not ready yet, will say, oh, actually, I think that we have this option and we can take advantage of it.
I would agree, and I think that most school districts that have had junior kindergarten programs for a while really noticed that. I know that Abby noticed, she's nodding. She started one in Hot Springs, and what she noticed was that the demand actually was probably greater than the need, where people who are like, I'd like to give my child that foundation. And sometimes you know, that maybe they didn't quite need it, and what the numbers look like, but there is, yes, I do think that demand will grow for that. Yeah, 100%.
Mrs. Stephenson.
I don't want to be too much like, you have to do this. But I will say, I have a daughter in first grade, and it kind of breaks my heart that she didn't have an opportunity to have this in kindergarten. You know, like, not for her, it just, her classroom was hard, and her teacher has retired, so I can say that. I mean, we had some frank conversations. Her classroom was really hard, and it is following her, and it will continue to follow. And so, yes, I can imagine it's hard. It takes some courage. I'm so appreciative of the principals and the staff that, I mean, they did this in a very short amount of time, really short. And you did the work, you've got the data to show that it was effective. I'll be honest, I'm struggling with one school, expanding by one school. Sometimes I kind of want to Elon Musk it, like, just do it. You have 6 months, you know, like, just figure it out. Fine, you know, it just, I'm struggling with that. But I will counter that by saying, I know that I don't understand all the complexities. I'm not gonna set a deadline and be super upset, but I would if you need a push from the board or a board member, I would like to give you that push and say, this sounds like it could really help all the kids, not just the kids who are in junior kindergarten. And I'd like to see more of our kids have access to it.
Just to follow up on that, Ms. Stephenson, I appreciate the desire, and what we've seen tonight is very, very good. It's good for our kids. I think it would do us well to, first of all, let's see some more data year over year. Let's see what we get in year 2 and in year 3. And then in order for us to do things really well and not just have a program that we rush into, I think is an approach that I prefer, because it sets us up for better success over time. And too often in education, we rush into things and then we fall short because, oh, well, there's another shiny object over there. And it's super easy to do that. So I think the things that we're bringing forward tonight, if we want to do them really well, we have to be very, very intentional, put the right resources in, watch the data, see the impact on kids, and make sure we're doing the right things. So we want to see it grow. I just want to make sure we do it really well.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. I kind of think there's so many good ideas in education. It's just a matter of having the leadership to implement it well and stick with something. So I can appreciate that. You did remind me of one other question I had before we move on. Are we gonna follow this cohort and collect some data specifically for them, the ones who were in junior kindergarten and the ones who had junior kindergarten, or who had regular kindergarten with the junior kindergarten removed?
Knowing that that's something we want, we're uniquely placed to, make sure that we're doing the best that we can to follow that and track that for a while. And we know that that long-term success is important, and to really evaluating, is it actually successful? Like right now, it seems really good. And let's see a few years down the line. And because, we have a smaller group, we can do that more thoughtfully, and see how that goes.
It almost seems like you could partner with the USD School of Education and get somebody to get their PhD on it, right?
Mrs. Moore.
And I apologize if you've already explained this, but can you take junior K over again? Would there be any reason to do that?
No, there is no reason to repeat junior kindergarten. Partially just because we would have concerns that if the student wasn't really successful at junior kindergarten, that doing the same thing over,
Yeah.
we'd want to get them, another start. And a part of it is we have students start kindergarten all of the time that are not right on ready for kindergarten. So I believe that the progress that they have made in junior kindergarten is still really valuable and still getting them a better launch to kindergarten. And then a part of it is that junior kindergarten is actually year 0. It's not year
Right.
1.
Right.
Where kindergarten through 12th grade is 13 years of
Yeah.
school. But we're with adding year 0, we're technically at 14 years of school.
Yeah.
And then looking also at what that does to their age and their cohort and what that would be like, because they have to be kindergarten age to do junior kindergarten. So then if we have 2 years that they're, say, 5 that whole year and then 6 the whole year, starting kindergarten as a 7-year-old could be problematic. And then
Yeah.
honestly, there may be other concerns that we need to look at,
Yeah.
and maybe it's not just that.
And that makes sense. In the one screen that you said it was approaching, well, you can approach from here, you can approach from here. Those that are approaching from way back here are struggling. And that was just my concern. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Clapham. Okay, her hand is down. All right, I guess we can continue.
So we're going to VES, right? Sorry, means I got to share my screen again. Delay there.
While he's doing that, I sincerely apologize for running late for instructional council. I never want that. So sorry.
Betu Washte. Well, good evening, board. Ms. Hogenkamp and I will be presenting about virtual elementary school. A quick summary. All right, so we're just gonna dive right into our virtual elementary school. So next slide. Why should we have a virtual elementary school? So we'll be able to meet the needs of our families, including those who are currently homeschooling or wanting an alternative setting. By having options as a district, we increase our students' educational opportunities. A model for our virtual elementary school will be a blended model with students working online as well as checking in with a certified teacher. Who, for our virtual school, is for families that are currently homeschooling, want to homeschool, or are medically fragile, or want an alternative to traditional schooling. So once again, just like Dr. Strasser was saying, how it aligns with our student pillar, virtual elementary school aligns with our student pillar by welcoming and acknowledging all students for their value as an individual in a safe environment where they are educated and prepared with skills to be successful in life. Our enrollment is those that provide support or options to our homeschool students or our current students who want to explore innovative schooling.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to share. We envision our virtual elementary school being a blended model, which just means that students will have a combination of face-to-face instruction as well as online learning. So they will have times when they will be working directly with a certified teacher in our district. This provides for more flexibility and personalized instruction. And then our lessons are definitely interactive, more digital resources, digital tools, and then activities as well. And those activities is where we bring in some of that face-to-face. We can do field trips. We can still bring students together for that social engagement. So that's the blended model, the vision we have for that. So looking at getting started, Dr. Strasser already talked about we would be using the Kibben Custer building to house those classrooms. 2 certified teachers. We would be looking at having up to 20 students with each teacher. Grade level will depend. So those teachers will have multi-grade level students is the way we envision it. And grade levels will just depend on who we have enroll. The number of students though we'd like to keep with each teacher is in the 20 range. We would need some building administrative support, and then clerical support, and then that $40,000 that you see there is that learning system. And that includes our staff being trained on how to use that system. It's the same system that they currently use, I believe, at RC. Ingenuity, yeah.
It's an elementary version of Edgenuity, and it's called something different. I'm not thinking of what it is offhand. But Rapid City Area Schools has been using Edgenuity for over 10 years. They use it for credit recovery. They use it for the online high school, the virtual high school. And so just going with something that we're finding that has already been successful. Yeah, and then that training, it also would be per student. And so that's for up to 40 students. And if we didn't have 40 students, then we wouldn't pay. It would be depending on how many students enrolled and what we have going on with them. And they do provide some hands-on workbooks and things with that as well.
So where the blended model comes in with that is that they would be using, the students would be using that online platform, but then there would also be some face-to-face instruction. We know that especially kindergarten, first and second, those early reading skills aren't taught well online. And so there would be times when students would be required to be logged on so that they could see their teacher and they could be practicing those reading skills. There would also be times that the students would have to actually come to Kibben Custer and meet with their teachers. So the timeline that we were looking at,
is tonight, we're obviously presenting, and then being able to move forward with advertising for the program, getting that hiring process started, promoting the program. Open registration would start in April. Dr. Strasser explained that the students would be enrolled as Meadowbrook students. And then, so those teachers would fall under that, me as their building supervisor. So I would be overseeing the program and making sure that students' needs are being met in those sorts of things. We would hopefully have parent information meetings in April and May, and then do a orientation in August for students that we're planning to start.
Okay.
Does,
Clap. Oh, are you done?
Yeah, no,
no,
I
but go
had
ahead.
I had a quick question. Pardon my interruption there, Ms. Hogenkamp. I was just wondering, so you said that you would be the administrator, but I was a little, and maybe I'm blurring the lines here, because Dr. Strasser mentioned that he'd need a building administrator at Kibben Custer. And so those would obviously be two different people. So would you be the administrator for just the virtual, and there'd be a different administrator for the autism class? And does that question make sense?
Yeah.
It does. Thank you for that, Ms.
Okay.
Clapham. So how we're looking at it is, Ms. Hogenkamp is the administrator for Meadowbrook and the programs at Kibben Custer. So she's the overall administrator in charge of those programs and school facilities. And by bringing in an assistant principal, they can support, they can provide coverage at both buildings, so that when we need administrative support, we have that at both facilities. But also, I think it's important when you look at all that we have going on at both Meadowbrook, from the district special ed classrooms to bringing in a junior K, and then to the various programs, you need more administrative support to make sure that these programs can move in the right direction and have that support.
Okay, Ms.
That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Urban.
I might be jumping ahead. Are you going to tell us how many kids can be in the program?
So for the virtual school, we are shooting for 40 the first year. Yeah.
Okay, Mrs. Stephenson.
I'll say mine. Okay. Okay. So attendance, students would be required to log on every day. That's how we would track their attendance. Same attendance policies would apply, and enrollment would be conducted through Meadowbrook. If they, for some reason, were to leave the virtual school partway through the year, then they would go back to their home school. This isn't a free ticket into Meadowbrook. They can't start it at the virtual school and then decide they don't want to do that anymore and then be a Meadowbrook student for the rest of the year. So.
Yeah, they would have to follow the appropriate process
The personal
to
transfer
move, personal transfer to move throughout the district.
So there would be days that the virtual elementary school students would be required to actually come to Kibben Custer and meet with their teachers. There's going to be some assigned times that is required for specific lessons if they need to be hands-on, face-to-face instruction. And then also for our testing, our state testing, the Acadience, the MAPS, the end of year testing for SBAC, those would have to be done in the building because they have to be on our secure network for those computer-based tests. And then we would also offer days for like open days, that if students are just struggling with something at home or just need more help or more time to practice, there would be some open time that parents could bring kids in to get that additional support if it was needed. So the teachers would still be required to do same contract day, so they'd be required to be in the building and available to parents and students throughout that regular contract day time. So then the enrollment criteria, the first students that we'd accept obviously need to be inside our school boundaries, inside our CAS, not necessarily Meadowbrook, but anywhere in the district. And then the open enrollment policy would then go into effect. So if there were students outside of our district boundaries, that wanted a virtual program, then we would open to them if we had room. They would have to complete the same registration packet as all of our families have to in order to attend. And then we would notify students after the enrollment period, notify those families if they were accepted into the program, if that was what they were, as long as we had space and that kind of thing. Okay.
All right, Mrs. Stephenson.
Okay. As far as technology is concerned, I assume these students would get a district issued computer.
Yes.
Any assistance with Wi-Fi if a family didn't, or is that just, it's assumed that they will have Wi-Fi?
That's something, so there are a lot of little details that come with putting this program together. But I think that is something we would look at, is how do we make sure that if you're going to be a virtual student, that you have the resources. And if we need to invest in hotspots or that kind of thing, that's something I think we need to be very open to doing.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I work with kids and I'm stunned at the number of parents whose the only Wi-Fi in the house is a track phone, you know, and you can't do homeschool there, and we want all kids to have this option. How often is it in person?
We haven't set actual, it was gonna be different per grade level, because like I said, those primary grades, they're gonna need more face-to-face instruction than say a fifth grader would. A fifth grader, I mean, some of them do a lot of their stuff on computer anyway, even when they're at school. So they wouldn't need as much of the face-to-face instruction. So I think it'll come down to kind of looking at planning, scope and sequence. How can we get these lessons in and meet the needs of the students? And so it'll vary per grade level.
Okay. So will you have target numbers for grade level, or are you just gonna see who enrolls? And like, if there's 20 second graders, we take 20 second graders?
Yeah, I'm just gonna see who enrolls.
Okay.
So some teachers may have, my goal would be that we would have one teacher doing K2 instruction and the other teacher doing 3-5.
Okay.
Instruction would be the goal. I think that would be ideal, but if we have 25 second graders that enroll, then, you know, we'd want to make sure that we meet that need, so.
And they'll get a report card from the
Yep,
district?
everything they follow the same calendar, they follow the same code of conduct policies, the student handbook, all of those, they fall under the same as Rapid City Area School students.
Okay, and then my last question, would they have the chance to do orchestra or band in 4th and 5th grade?
Yes, so they would still have those same opportunities. They would just, like this parent would be responsible for their transportation.
Okay,
And
and would
if
that
they-
be at Meadowbrook or at their home school?
It would probably be at Meadowbrook would be, to me, the most logical, because it's the closest to, but if they wanted to do it at their home school, they could choose to do that as well.
Okay.
I would imagine, yeah.
I would say that we did not get too far down the road to looking at all of the ins and outs of what that blended learning would look like, because it's just not the right time. If we start planning that and then, you know, we find that this doesn't work and you all don't like it, then we would have been putting a lot of time into something that we didn't need to. And then, you know, our teachers are really experts. They know a lot. They know a lot about what students need in kindergarten, in first grade, in second grade. And, you know, we really want them, those that are doing the work and are closest to it and understand it the best, to have a lot of say about that. And, you know, obviously we haven't hired, you know, we haven't, it's not a go yet. So, there's work to be done, but it needs to be done by those that are actually going to be doing the work. We talked about some things that I talked to a school in Washington State, elementary school, and they had kids coming in, you know, periodically for science labs and different things like that. And to have recess with their peers, sometimes just some play. So they would get practice at that and, you know, having lunch together. And so that they don't have to be missing all of that, you know, with that virtual does not have to be all or none.
Well, I appreciate your answers to all my questions. I just anticipate getting a lot of questions, and I'm thrilled. I think it's a super good idea. I think it's a great way to draw families into the district and offer options. And so I appreciate the work you've put into it. And, look forward to see what becomes of it.
Mrs. Urban.
No questions, just a comment. I am so excited because I think so many people are asking for this. I have had so many homeschool parents that say, I don't know where to get the curriculum, or they'll ask, can we use your curriculum? They want to be able to have their kids at home for various reasons, but having some expertise behind, education, I think is important and something that people are asking for. So I'm so excited. And I do think generally it's really great to have kids in school, but there are kids that just need a different setting. And so being able to offer that option is so important, I think. And I'm just really grateful for all of you and making it happen.
I think one of the things that's great about the virtual option is what it adds for families that are making that choice already to not be enrolled in public school, to not be in building, but to realize how that supports the entire community of Rapid City by helping provide a certain level of educational experience that maybe families on their own cannot do. And so that they do appreciate that support, and it's just one more way of helping ensuring that Rapid City community has the education that it needs to have their best life.
Right, Mrs. Clapham.
Yes, I was just wondering, and I realize this may be a detailed question that we don't know the answer to, but would there be any parameters, limitations if a student is an IEP on an IEP or a 504?
We did discuss that, some, and we kind of decided that it would be a team decision. So if there was a family that their student was on an IEP and they wanted to, we would come together as an IEP team and talk about whether or not we could meet their needs in a virtual setting or not. That was?
Yeah,
we
I would
discussed
agree with that. The
Yeah.
IEP team is gonna have to determine if those needs can be met. If they can't be met within that setting, they can talk about what would that look like and how those needs could be met, but it's not an automatic, it's individually based per kid.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions on this section? Okay, before we move on, it's 6:40 now, so let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 6:45. Thank you. Running.
Interesting.
It's been busy. I just on my, yeah, and. And so they're like.
So do we have finance or not? You don't. You're not on finance committee.
Totally different. The cancellation I got was for finance. I don't think I've done anything. Well, I know, what is other?
All right, Dr. Strasser?
I'll turn it over to Dr. Comer regarding some of our programming that regards behaviors and special services.
And so I'm going to combine a little bit of an update from our Marzano study. Last year we did the Marzano study. And if you go to the next slide here, they have, it was completed in June. So in June, all the way up through last school year, they met with some focus groups, administrators, teachers, special ed teachers. They had some parents. They did surveys. They compiled all that information. And then they also did a 3-year-long review of all of our information, like budget, staff, things like that. And so they came up with some different recommendations for us. And then based on that, next one. Based on that, we took all of that information and said, now what do we do with our Marzano study, our information? So with help from the TL office, shout out to Nicole Keegan, and Special Services Leadership, shout out to Cher Daniel. They put together some groups of stakeholders to really look at what the recommendations were from the Marzano study and how could we implement those and what would that look like for our district. So the stakeholders included the special ed teachers, general ed teachers, administrators, and parents. And so they met in 3 different days, and then they broke up into 4 different groups to really discuss all of the 3 different focus areas that Marzano was looking at. So I'll go on to the next slide a little bit quicker, but this one is really just looking at the 3 focus areas. They looked at identifying special ed students, the quality of our staff, and then the communication and collaboration of those. And so if we move on to the next one, it gets a little more detailed into, so Marzano, when they looked at our focus area 1 of identifying students appropriately for special education, developing their IEPs, delivering services, they really felt that we needed to look as a district, are we placing them adequately and providing them the appropriate support for their needs? And really looking at, are we providing the training that goes along with that, and is it really systematic? And so that's one area that they suggested that we look at. Focus area 2 looked at quality, the number and quality of special ed staff serving our students with disabilities. Looking at conducting a needs assessment. So looking at, okay, what is the professional development? What are the needs that our teachers have? And so we've really gotten some input in from our teachers of what is the specific things that you need, feel that you need training on. Looking at providing professional development that increases that sense of efficacy for staff members who participate in the IEP meetings. So not only the special ed teachers, but general ed teachers, administrators, whoever's in that meeting, how can they participate and be a member of that team? And then looking at that long-term plan for addressing, our staffing shortage issues, basically. And we have been doing those strategies of trying to recruit and retain staff. Focus area 3 looked at the communication and collaboration practices of the special ed department among staff, and then also between the staff and the families. So really making sure that our families feel that they're connected and our staff feel connected with each other as well. So really looking at creating a systematic policy and practice for communicating with all of those groups and making sure they're knowledgeable about our program, our practices, and our curriculums and how we're helping students. And then also providing a school level family liaison to support families and caregivers. That was one of the recommendations from Marzano's. And so as we look forward, the task force really looked at, these are things, again, that Marzano suggested. How do we take those? And again, what things can we implement within our district? What things are short-term? What things are long-term? There's a lot of things within the study and the suggestions that are very long-term plans. It's going to take a while to get everybody very educated on an IEP process so they are a true participant in a meeting. we take baby steps into that each year. So some of the things that they were suggesting again are more long-term. But there's, in the meantime, so some of the things that the recommendations of the task force that we met this school year, looking at a caseload cap. So that group had said 20 was a recommended number for caseloads for special ed teachers. Looking at professional development, you know, is it timely? Is it face-to-face? Is it mandatory? Do we small group, large group? Early intervention. This really ties into what we're talking about today. Early intervention means early intervention for all. So it's not just early childhood, it's early childhood to kindergarten, to first grade, to second grade, and it's all general ed and special ed. So how are we meeting the needs of all of those students? Looking at collaboration and that protected collaboration time amongst both the general education teachers, the special education teachers, our district-wide programs. Do they have time to really utilize each other's strengths and knowledge to say, hey, I have this problem with a student. Do you have suggestions for me? And we've been doing some of that with monthly meetings with our teachers. And I think that's provided another opportunity for them to collaborate a little bit more together. Posting positions earlier this year, and we did. So I'm really excited about that. We're looking at that new website for the district. So I think getting into that special ed side to look at, okay, is it really informational for our parents and our teachers of what our special ed program is and what it means? That parent guardian liaison, really what the task force looked at was more that middle school, high school. A lot of life changes happen from high school to adulthood when you're a student with special needs. So there's certain funding sources you can and cannot access until you hit a certain age. There are certain services that are not available. There's application processes, there's guardianship. So there's all these things that parents, until you've done it, you don't really understand, how do I do that? So being able to provide somebody with that knowledge a little more accessible for the parents. And then of course that differentiated professional development. Is it all for one, or is it this group needs this group needs this? And so we're going to really focus on that. So a huge thanks to the task force. And when I look at what are we focusing on based from that task force discussion, I brought some information for you guys later for the weighted caseloads to kind of show you this is how we're coming up with the weighted caseloads, looking at making it an equal across the board. So if you have 10 students, your 10 students weighted caseload is the same as maybe somebody over here who has 25 students. Again, it's looking at the needs of the students, their communication, their behavior, and things like that. That differentiated PD, early intervention, again, is what we're talking about today. And then programming, how are we going to improve and increase the programming that we're providing for our students with disabilities? And so those are some of the things that I'm going to talk about here in my next couple slides. When we look at, so looking at the needs of our students, there's a program called the Teach Model. So basically what this is a program that was developed back in 1972. So it's very research-based, very, has a lot of success within it, the program. It's a very visual-oriented program. It has, they call it a structured teaching. So like physical organization, visual boundaries, schedules, work systems, routines, tasks, and organization. So it's a real good methodology that you can use with students with more significant disability in that autism spectrum. So maybe they're lacking communication skills and their behavior is pretty significant as well. We do have a lot of students who would meet that criteria within our district. And so when we look at, or when I look at, the classroom that they're currently in right now, you're going to have a range of students with maybe a mild cognitive impairment, or you might have a student with maybe mild autism, and then you have a student with a significant level of autism. And so you have a big range of needs of students that you're going to be working with, but implementing and bringing in a program that is just for those students, and they all need that particular program, you're going to be able to have a more efficient and effective program because every student is going to be working off of that program. If we don't do it at Kibben, our numbers are exploding significantly. So I would say this is something that we need in our special ed program, regardless of where it is at. because our numbers K2 and our students in our structured academics are increasing. And we don't want those rooms to get larger than they should, because then we're not going to be as effective. So the teach model is just something that I would like to look at and explore further. One of the nice things is that low student to staff ratio. Depending on the severity of the students, it could be a 2-to-1 ratio or a 3-to-1 ratio. And again, because it's very hands-on, very visual, and very structured for that day. And this is something that we've been talking about as a special ed department for quite a while.
Dr. Comer, when you say staff ratio, is that teacher to student, or is that staff meaning a teacher or para to student? How is that looked at?
Yep, thank you. Great question, because I did not clarify that. It is staff. So you would have one teacher who would be the teacher for a classroom of 6 students, let's say, and then you would have either 2 or 3 paras, depending on the severity of the needs of those students.
Hey, Ms. Clapham? Jamie?
Yes, sorry, I was having technical difficulties. I was just wondering, as Dr. Comer talked about needs growing and numbers growing, is this something too that as we look at facilities and we talk about our master plan, that you would need and desire input on? Because I'm just imagining that for ratios and space and some of these things in the teach model, that there would need to maybe be some facilities changes, upgrades, or addition. Would that be a relatively accurate statement?
Kind of depends on where it's located. I mean, it's a classroom. I think part of more the facilities discussion is going to be the age level of the student and what their needs are. If there's a lot of self-care needs, then you're going to want to have a bathroom close by, changing station for any self-care needs. But otherwise, the classrooms that we have, our structured academics classrooms are, they're good sizes right now. It's just we're needing more and more because our student needs. I think Mr. Sassy brought forward our numbers for autism have increased like substantially within the last 5 years. So our numbers of our students with higher needs are increasing. And so we need to make sure we provide those services for them.
Ms. Stephenson?
So the child who would go into a teach classroom would be pretty involved autism, like kind of the flight risk, elopement, is it that level, the behaviors?
Yep.
And they would go into 2 classrooms in Kib and Custer if we implement it this way. I should know this, but can you tell, where are those kids now?
We contract for several of them for impact learning.
Which means?
Means we are currently paying another facility or organization to provide services.
So
to our
Lifescape in Sioux Falls or
impact learning.
Oh, Impact is its own organization?
Yes.
Okay, I thought that was a
Yeah,
category
impact
of.
learning. That's a day program. We do have students that we've looked at providing partial time at other agencies within town. We have a lot of strengths within our special ed department, so being able to bring that in and provide those services within would be great. When you look at the number of students that we have that we're paying for outside, we could fund that. It's just a matter of can we find the staff to do it? But that's probably more of a concern of mine than actually the facilities, is just finding the staff to do it.
Sure. So this would take students who are enrolled in our district, but we're paying to,
Not all of them, but some of them, yes.
Okay, so the goal would be to get some of them back into our classroom.
Yeah, and we have some students who are in our structured academic programs right now. Again, they're in a mixed program, and so trying to meet the needs of one severely autistic student over here, along with, say, a medically fragile student over here, it's very difficult if you're a teacher to say, how do I maintain safety of this student over here, but yet teach this student skills so they can control their behavior and work with their autism characteristics. So being able to separate those out a little bit more, you're going to be able to be very specific and explicit on here's the methodology that will work for that student.
Okay, so currently we're not grouping this student these students, this handful of students anywhere.
They're in most of them are in a structured academics classroom currently.
But there are, you know,
And then some are
kids
in
with
the
cerebral
impact
palsy,
and-
kids, with- you know, like just, there's a whole range of kids.
Yes.
Okay. I really, I'm excited about this too. I'm excited about everything tonight. I wanna just provide a witness. I just wanna tell the story of a friend of mine whose grandson has high level autism. And I think this is relevant for you to know, like, they keep moving to Omaha because the programming is so good. But then they keep coming back here because they need family support. They can't raise this child by themselves. So they have to be here because that's where their family is. But then the kid does not thrive in our school district, so they up and move and they go back to another job. It is awful. And it's, and I can't pinpoint why we are struggling so much more than, for example, Omaha. But it sounds like this might help some of those, like help us do better for these poor families. And I work with some of them here in town. Like, it's just so hard.
And the teach model is really, it's more geared towards school facilities. A lot of what our programs use right now is ABA. ABA is a great program, but it's hard to transition back into a school setting. The teach model really works with our setting itself already. So we're going to be able to hopefully see some growth so that student maybe no longer needs to be in that structured of an environment, and they can go back into that structured academics with their peers. And so the goal is to teach them the skills that they need to self-regulate and get them back in. Some maybe need this all the way through, but some may not.
Well, I appreciate you taking some action on this.
So then the other piece that we're looking at is, okay, we have a huge number of students with behaviors. And so this is something that we've talked about in the past of how do we help provide services for students with behaviors within our district, but really focusing on, is it proactive? Are we teaching them behaviors? Right now in our setting that we have, it ends up being reactive because that's the method that we have. We have a lot of things, conscious discipline works for probably 95% of the students, but you have that small group of students that conscious discipline, no matter how well you can implement it, may not work for that student. So we need to look something different for these kids. And so I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of the whys we need a behavioral classroom within our district. We have a lot of increase in disruptive behaviors that are impacting their learning and the learning of others. We really need that structured and research-based approach that teaches those social skills, and it kind of that self-regulation teaches those problem-solving skills. It's easier in a small setting to work out a problem. That's why our behavioral skills classrooms work so well, is because you have that environment and it's set up for that specific purpose, that you can watch a student learn and kind of process through a behavioral problem. But when you're in the middle of a classroom, it's harder to do that. So they leave and then come back, but what's changed? They've settled down, but we didn't really fix the behavior problem. We need to provide some time that we're fixing that and teaching them some skills. When we looked at models, there are a lot of different models out there. Boys Town is one of them. There's another one that that was shared that is on the proactive schools, safe and civil schools. Really the main focus is that behavior reinforcement, social skill instruction, and those consistent expectations. So I think regardless of which one that we choose, all of them need to follow what we feel are the values that we want to teach our students, whether it's social, behavioral, is it going to be punishment, or is it going to be more proactive of we're teaching you skills? And I think that's the piece that we want to really focus on, is the positive reinforcements for the students. With that, we want to make sure that we're coaching and training our teachers. So both programs that we've been looking at so far have some training components that go into that. Boys Town is a 4-day training, and they come here to do that training. And I don't know the specifics of the other one, but it has some training with it as well. And again, those low to student to staff ratios, again, I think, depending on the severity of the behaviors, you could be looking at 12 students, one teacher, 10 students, one teacher, and then a paraprofessional. If it's a mixed classroom between general ed and special ed can provide some of that support for your paraprofessionals in the training because they're working with all of those students, which I think is a benefit. Yes.
Jump in here. So when we talk about those ratios and we talk about this program, this is a general education program. It is not a special education program. I know Dr. Comer is sharing the information, but much like how we emphasized RCAA in the program changes last year, it is not just about special education. This is for our general ed students so that the teachers are going to be general education teachers. And as you mentioned, with support from special education. So I think that's really important, that we're not just moving only for special education. This can be open to any student who has behavioral needs and needs this kind of support and setting.
And looking at, calling it reset, I think really looking at how to call it. I think it's some students just need to relearn those skills that either they lost or they didn't have to begin with. How do I interact with my peers? How do I, when I'm frustrated, how do I move on? How do I process through those things? So that was just what we came up with was reset.
Can I ask a question about behavior? I think you said this, but this would be a student from an elementary classroom gets referred to behavior reset? And what would be your guess at the anticipated length of enrollment in the behavior reset?
Being new to a new program, I do have kind of a very quick slide that basically talking about that selection criteria and who would go in. I think it is going to be a referral process for both the TEACH program and the behavioral program, that reset classroom. So really looking at, we would need to set, these are the criteria, these are the students' behaviors that we feel would fit into that program, and do a very similar referral process and kind of streamlined process as the virtual elementary school, because we want to make sure that we're hitting all the needs that we have. But I don't want to say, well, if you don't have A, then you can't be there. But here's the criteria, here's the things that we're looking for that would make you successful into there. When we looked last time at a behavior program, I think a lot of it's going to depend on the students that we put there, of how long they're going to be, or versus, and the actual program that we use. Is it you do this many lessons and then you've completed? So I think there's a lot of variation in depending, again, how far down the hole do we go until we know if we should move forward?
Sure, yeah. So this, right now, if we imagine 2 classrooms for 12 students, that's not necessarily, we would serve 24 students during the school year. The hope would be we'd be serving.
Potentially. Yes.
Or some kids might
yes.
be there the whole year.
Yeah. I would say with any program like this, students who show growth and show that they've met our expectations, there's always that transition back into a regular classroom setting. That's always the goal. And and I think that's something that we'll drill down on how that would look. Coming from the special education side, they probably have a little more experience on transitions from one setting to the other. So we'll draw on that expertise. But to that end, yes, you could serve more than 24 students potentially. And I want to reiterate that this is, when I look at all our programs, and we have our special ed programs and then the behavior supports in the general ed classroom, whether it's a tier 1 behavior support, a tier 2, this gets to the tier 3. And I look at it as, we needed something that goes beyond that tier 1, tier 2 and the special ed services. And what we're able to do right now with referrals to Children's Home Society. So this is kind of filling that gray area. And I think it's just a well-rounded way to try and meet as many needs as we can to serve our students.
I would say that moving for a student to transition back into kind of the traditional classroom would need to be really intentional because just dropping them in the middle when there's been a lot of things happening in that classroom and maybe the students that are there kind of gelled and just as a new kid moving in, not to mention, you know, they're trying to transfer skills that they've learned to be effective, that it would have to be a really deliberate plan to make sure the student is getting supported. So while the goal is that, you know, we really want to do it well.
And then the preschool programs, as we talked about earlier, our buildings are getting full. And so Rapid Valley and Pinedale have both said, can you help us find a spot for the preschool programs? One of the nice things that I love about General Beetle is we have two preschool programs that work side by side together. And so they're a team. I think having two at Kibben would also provide that team approach. We do want to open it back up to integrated preschool next year. We are probably at 120, 130 special ed students in the pre-K with 5 teachers. So our numbers are increasing. So but I think that team approach is really going to be helpful. One of the things we've talked about is also adding in that teach program down into one of our preschool classrooms. That would not necessarily have to be at Kibben, but I do think if we bring it in for a different age group, it would be good to have, again, train them all together to say, hey, we want you guys to learn together and train together. That way they're focusing on the same goals and curriculum. And then this was just that placement criteria that we talked about. I think as we get the go to say, yep, please move forward, I think we're going to be able to specify out more structured pieces that you guys are going to want to know exactly what that will look like, the more detailed things.
Urban.
Kind of what Jamie talked a little bit about was, you know, asking about facility implications. And I just think that is so huge when we're talking about programming and building facilities to meet today's needs. And then I think the community, you know, even though we're losing students, unfortunately, we have all of these needs that are rising in special ed. And so a classroom that can hold 25 is not the same thing, right? Your capacity, you could maybe put 500 kids in this building, but if you have 3 special ed rooms, that decreases it. So I think trying to help the public understand what that does to capacity and just the need to make sure that our buildings fit our programs is so important.
All right, board, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much. Another wonderful report.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And we are going to shift gears out of the elementary and move it to middle and high school. Ask Ms. Kanta and her team to come, and I'm going to stop sharing this.
I just make a comment before you begin. These elementary programs, they just really, I'm so pleased, and I want to express my gratitude, Dr. Strasser, leading these efforts over this year. It is so responsive to all we hear, and it is very nice to be able to say, there are things in the works, and they're going to be coming. And I know it's been a lot of work, and I'm so appreciative, and I know it will not be a straight path forward as much as I'd like it to be, but it's promising, it's hopeful, and I appreciate that. We all can use hope every once in a while.
And before they start, my battery's about dead. I might have to borrow. No, not that one. But I do want to, because you had asked Bishop Carr, what's the ask? Hopefully you've seen from the programs on the elementary side that we're asking for permission to move forward. We wanted to present you with information so that hopefully at the next board meeting, you can give us some direction on these programs. But also the the resources, meaning what staff and costs and those things. And I'll drill down more on those for you as well. But that's the big approval is for the costs, and that's really staffing. So it's just your permission to say, yep, move forward, and then formal approval on the budget side.
All right. Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jessica Canta. I am the Rapid City Alternative Academies principal. This is my first year over there. It's kind of a late night. I'm really hungry. I don't know about you guys. I have a team behind me. I have Mr. Morton, who teaches Discovery. Thank you. I don't want it to be so. Mr. Morton is with me. He teaches Discovery, so he's going to have a small part in this. I have Miss Larson, who teaches communications, and so she is our primary teacher for our communications course. And Mr. Binder, who does a little bit of everything in our building, but he's really good at data, so he is here as well. I did give them the snacks that I had in my backpack and some gum. That's all I had. I should have brought a whole snack bag, but I didn't have that. So today we are talking specifically about the Discovery program at Rapid City Alternative. So at Rapid City Alternative Academies, we actually have 6 different programs. We have in-person high school, which is Eagles Path. We have in-person middle school, which is high school prep. We have virtual high school, which is in the name itself, virtual high school. We have long-term suspension. So those students who have been suspended out of their home buildings, they come to us for educational opportunities. We have Fresh Start, which is a program for students that are coming out of like a treatment or JSC, and they get discharged or released at kind of some odd times in the semester for them. So they will come over to our building and receive some educational services. Plus, we have Homebound also that is housed in our building. So we have lots of different moving pieces. I directly oversee the in-person high school, the in-person middle school, and the virtual high school. Dr. Conroy oversees the other pieces, and Dr. Conroy and I work together on those. So today we're going to focus on Discovery and what that means at Rapid City Alternative Education. Discovery is how our entire building operates. So first we have to define what Discovery is, right? So Discovery was founded in 1990 in Colorado. It's a concrete research-based skills-based curriculum. So really what it boils down to is making sure that we are teaching our students the positive social skills for them to be successful, not only in a school community, but also just in life. The communications, what we are hopefully teaching our young students, especially like in the world of communication, problem solving, that is transferable skills into the job market. So every student, every in-person student at Rapid City Alternative Academy starts with Discovery course. So that is their entry course. Mr. Morton, that's where Mr. Morton steps in. He is our primary Discovery course teacher. We're going to go into some of the details of what we're teaching in that in just a few minutes. Our high school students, in conjunction with Discovery course, also are taking communications. The communications course is that takes place of their English 12, or it is their English 12 credit that they also need for graduation. At the high school level, of course, everything we do needs to tie back to graduation credits. Our goal is to graduate students, so everything is aligned that way. At the high school level, they get 2 credits for that. And then, of course, they're transcripted at the middle school level as well. It just looks a little different, but it's transcripted on the transcripts. Our entire building follows what we're going to present to you today. It is about being a part of a school community within the larger community of Rapid City. So there's 3 main objectives to the Discovery course. That strong sense of school community. You have to have pride in where you go to school. You have to feel valued where you go to school. And that is a huge piece of what we are trying to embed in our school. You also, that second objective, we have to teach, practice, and provide feedback. We can't just assume that our students have these positive social skills. A lot with what my colleagues talked about for a couple of hours today. We can't assume they have it. We have to make sure that they do, and we have to provide that feedback when it's not going great. That third objective is just to ensure the culture of school and Students need to know what we expect of them, and they need to know how we're going to help support that. And you do that through dignity and respect. There's a lot of calming conversations that happen. We have a lot of conversations with our students about what mode of communication they're in. And we're going to go through that in just a couple minutes too. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Morton, who is so thrilled to be here tonight. And we're going to talk specifically about what we're teaching in that discovery course, because that is the highlight of this evening.
Thank you. The discovery course it's 9 weeks, like all of our courses at the alternative academies. There's 6 major units. We've been playing with pacing of those. The first quarter, we got through all 6 in the 9 weeks, but took all 9 weeks to do it. As we've kind of moved on, we're trying to get through them a little bit faster than the 9 weeks, just so the last week or 2, we can actually try and put everything we've learned into practice and have them show us that they can do these skills that we've hopefully taught them. But we start out with effective groups. We start that way because our class it's a closed course. So after about the first 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 days, we don't let any new students into that course. Our students form a pretty tight bond. And a lot of that is because of that effective groups unit. We teach them to introduce themselves to each other, to shake each other's hands for the first time, meet each other. And it's surprising at how many of them don't know this. During one of our intake meetings, we had a parent ask us, like, well, you don't teach them that in middle school? And she was very surprised. And I was kind of surprised, like, you don't teach them this at home. Like, where you think we're doing it, we think you're doing it, it's not getting done, and it shows. So effective groups is very important, and it really solidifies our class as a cohort, as a group. My lunch period is spent with about 30 kids in my room every day, because they stick together in those groups and come up, and they don't want to eat lunch with everybody else all the time. So they come up to my room and eat lunch in there. It's very fun. I like it. Anger management is next. I focus a lot on its anger management, not anger control. I also have to, during the intake meetings, during class, we have to tell them I am not a psychologist or a social worker or anything. I'm a teacher. These are things that will help you manage your anger. And then a lot of times they're telling me what they do to manage their anger. And then we try to use anything that they give us to help other students in the class. You know, this student listens to music. Try that. This student works out. Let's try that. Whatever works for them, we're going to try it all. And so we make lists of things we can do, triggers and cues, knowing what makes you angry, knowing what happens to your body physiologically when you're getting angry, so you can recognize those things and be able to stop, take a break, move away from the situation, or handle it in an appropriate way. Like I said, it's all about anger management. We go over the positive effects of anger, being able to use that as a motivator to do something maybe you didn't think you had the ability to do or the motivation to do. I also like to let them know that anger can be viewed as a positive thing too. If there's something going on and it's made you angry, that means you care about it. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just how we deal with it that matters. Communication skills is probably my favorite unit to do. It goes around the 5 modes of communication. The first one is, it's bad that I just blanked out. Adult mode is where we want to be all the time, where we want our students to be. There's nurturing parent, critical parent, okay child, not okay child. It takes a little while to get them to wrap their heads around the fact that you can be in a critical parent communication mode without actually being a parent. And same thing, I have to explain to them that, yes, I can be a not okay child when something in my life doesn't go the way I want it to, and I throw a fit. I'm very much in the not okay child mode. So it does take a little while to get them to understand all that, but overall they pick it up pretty quick. There are traits to all these things, and they start to recognize these really quickly. They call us out regularly. If I'm maybe being critical in a critical parent mode, they'll ask me like, are you in your adult mode, Dennis? Are you in your adult mode, Morton? And I've stopped and been like, yeah, I'm not, give me a minute. Like, you guys go sit down, work on this for a few minutes. I'll be back in a minute. And I just sit at my desk and I'll, check an email, something, and try and get back into that adult mode. Literally today, had to take a student out for a hallway conversation, which we'll explain what that is in a little bit. But took a student out for a hallway conversation because in the middle of my lesson, I tell them, like, I'm not going to let you go to the bathroom in the middle of the lesson. Just try and do your best to hold it. If it's an emergency, let me know and just go. I had a student interrupt me in the middle of a lesson, come up with a pass, ask me to sign it, and I told him no. I don't think I was harsh in the way I said no, but the look on her face told me she thought I was. So after that, I asked her out for a hallway conversation and apologized. I'm sorry if I came off harsh. I didn't mean to. Seeing them react to that, that having that ability to communicate with me in that moment it's really nice to see. It's good to see. I feel like I'm rambling now. All right, assertiveness training. We go on to assertiveness training, and that is being able to stand up for yourself without being too aggressive and making sure people aren't walking all over you. Whenever we're talking about assertiveness, problem solving, and conflict resolution, I like to bring their personal lives as far as work goes into it. If you're at work and your boss tells someone else to go clean the bathrooms and they look at you and hand you the mop and say, go clean the bathrooms, how do you stand up to that other employee without being too aggressive or causing issues, further issues in the workplace? So it focuses on aggressive behavior, passive aggressive, and assertive behavior. And we try and get them to focus on the assertive behavior, standing up for yourself, but still while still being polite. Problem solving and conflict resolution. They're two units, but they're pretty closely related. We kind of run them into one unit with one test for the two of them. We have 5 steps to problem solving, 7 steps to conflict resolution, and they pick those up real quick. And they use them. I have a student this quarter who didn't make it through last quarter, so she's in my classroom again. First 2 days, she had a conflict with another student. And today we were doing a group activity and he needed a group, and he walked over and sat down with their group, and I walked over and kind of supervised for a couple seconds, made sure everything was okay. I had not realized, because we have not gone through that for this quarter yet, but she has. She used that conflict resolution model to resolve the conflict with that student without me even knowing it. So it's really good to see it when they're doing it in the hallways, in the classroom without my supervision. I'm not there standing over them, asking them, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? And they're just doing it themselves. So it's really, really good to see that. Circle up is just every morning we have a circle up. We find out how you're feeling, rate it 1 to 10, and we have some kind of prompt that we go over. It starts out pretty light. We start out with like, trying to think what our prompt was today. What was it? Oh yeah, how does snow or rain make you feel? What kind of water, if you were water, what kind of water would you be? Little, like easy things like that. Eventually we get into a bit more in-depth personal stuff, life lessons you've learned the hard way, things of that nature. I should be able to keep going, right? Okay. In the classroom, we are trying to get all of our students to live up to the 5 A's. Those are our attending skills. It starts off with being actively engaged. We want every student to be actively engaged in the lesson. Appropriate body language, appropriate eye contact, feed into that. I don't allow students to put their heads down on their desks. I don't allow them to sleep in class. I'll redirect them and have hallway conversations when those things are happening. And then appropriate feedback is, we had to deal with some of that today too. Just how we want them to redirect each other as well. But how that happens early on, this is week 2-ish, it's a little rough. Sometimes they're a little harsh and they're a little rude when they redirect each other. So I have to redirect them. But appropriate feedback is for them as much as it is for me. It reminds me every day that I have to have appropriate feedback for them as far as, well, you missed this question on a test. This is what I'm looking for. This is why you missed it. And then what other feedback can I give you? Do you understand why you got the score you did? And we tell them too, that these are for us as the staff, as much as it is for the students. I have to be actively engaged in them. I'm horrible at trying to do 2 or 3 things at once. I'm trying to write an email while I'm talking to a student. I'm not good at it. And so they stop and ask me, are you actively engaged with what I'm asking right now? And I have to stop and say, nope, I'm not. Okay, good. Tell me what you need. We take care of that. And then I finish my email. Ask clarifying questions or validating questions. To me, that's one of the most important ones. I want them to ask as many questions as they can. I firmly believe they should ask every teacher every question they have in class. Why, especially why do I need to know this? Why do I need this lesson? Why do I need to know how to do this math? Why do I need to know this bit of history or this way of writing a poem or any of that? And I think teachers should be able to answer that. If you are living in those 5 A's, if you're doing those 5 A's, you will be in with the 6 P's. And that's being prompt to school, being prompt to answer a question, being prompt to do what's asked of you. If we're doing a group activity, it's time to get up. Let's go. Let's do it promptly. Being prepared electronically. Make sure your computer's charged. Make sure you got a pencil. Make sure your phone's put away. Just be prepared for whatever is going to happen the best you can. Polite is pretty easy most of the time. Most of them, once you really start to get down to them and you realize like the more polite you are, the more polite people are going to be to you. They click into that really fast. PMA is a positive mental attitude. We want them to be positive as best they can, leave any negativity at the door. If you can't, then we have to figure out a way to get through the day while dealing with this stuff. Participate. Again, like I said, I don't let them sleep in class. I don't let them put their heads down. It sounds kind of obvious, but that stuff happens. And so participation is one of the big deals for us, and we get up and we try to move as much as possible. We try to do things that makes all of them get involved and interact with each other. That goes back to that effective groups. It really helps to have that effective groups unit at the beginning so that they feel the urge to participate. And finally, produce. We want them to produce appropriate quality and quantity of work. I make them write journals every day, almost every day. And it's in the grade book, it's just complete or not complete. That's it. And mainly, I tell them mainly what I'm looking for is 2 paragraphs. You can write about anything you want. I have a prompt up there for you if you don't have anything you think you want to write about. But I want 2 paragraphs. And if you can't provide 2 paragraphs, we have to figure out what's going on. Why can't you produce the appropriate quality or quantity of work? Quality, capital letters, periods, complete sentences, all of that. It seems kind of obvious, but in those journals, they're learning how to do that so that when they take their tests, they're answering in complete sentences, restating the question and the answer, all of those things that we kind of take for granted. It was kind of the same as the pre-kindergarten thing. We're teaching them how to be high schoolers. They don't know. They come in from middle school. They have this idea of what high school is supposed to be. They have an idea of what middle school was, and then they show up, and a lot of them, their first freshman year, get surprised when they fail a class and have to do that over. That doesn't happen a whole lot in their past. So we have to teach them all these things about how high school works. Let's see. These are some of the pictures of the physical activity stuff we do. We have a challenge by choice, which is one of our, I guess we could kind of call it a final, but they kind of go out, we go out to base camp and they do rock climbing walls. And the big part of it is even if you're not doing it, you have to kind of help and cheer on those who are doing it, and encourage them, motivate them. These are some of our art projects that we do. We have ceiling tiles from the commons area over by the theater where we were able to take those ceiling tiles down. We paint or the students paint something on there that represents their class. And then at the end of the class, or at the end of the year, we're putting them up in there so that next year when they come through, they can see their class's ceiling tile. Kind of take some pride, some ownership into things.
Well, the high school and middle school program does this. So
Yep.
I have a middle school, as you can tell. And then Miss Larson has one of the high school ones.
And all of these, it's really fun to see because all of these things, as soon as you start talking to students day one, where we're talking about where you're going to do effective groups, you're all going to meet each other. You're going to shake each other's hand and introduce each other to yourself, or introduce yourself to each other. Almost every kid will tell you, I'm not doing that. Nope, not doing it. After the second or third day, they're doing it. They all told me the first time we went to the climbing wall, almost every student said, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to sit there. I'm not doing it. Almost every kid was climbing on the wall by the end of the day. So just having them get up and do things and kind of showing them how to do it, an appropriate way to do it, and then watching them do it themselves it's great. So these are our redirects. I kind of mentioned them a little bit before. When something is not happening the way it should, if a student is not living up to the 6 Ps, or they're not currently focused on their attending skills, the 5 As, we'll redirect them. The first one is usually pretty casual. I'll walk by a student, they might have their phone out while we're doing a lesson, and I'll ask, hey, how are your attending skills right now? Are you focused on what's going on? Something in that manner. Most of the time they're pretty honest. They're like, oh, no, sorry, And then I just ask them, like, how much time do you need? Like, because sometimes they have a text that is actually important. It's a boss or a parent or something. And they're pretty honest again. They'll, give me a couple seconds, they finish it, put it away. Hopefully that's all there is to it. If there's a second one, it pretty much sounds the same way. How's your attending skills? Are you focused? Was that appropriate feedback, the way you commented back to the student, whatever it is? And then you have to remind them like, hey, this is a second redirect. Is everything okay? Yep. They usually respond with, yeah, everything's fine. On a third one, it's a hallway conversation, and we call it a hallway conversation with hope. The hope is to keep them in the classroom. And so a big part of the hallway conversation is we go out and I'll ask them if there's anything going on, if there's something they want to talk to me about or talk to anybody else about, just to make sure that there's not something that I'm unaware of going on. If it's the phone is the easiest, the easiest thing to use as an example. So if it's a phone issue, I'll ask that student, the phone's been an issue twice already. What's going on? Is there, do you absolutely have to have it? Is there an emergency? Usually it's not. And so I'll ask, what do you want to do? We have to focus on what they want to do to fix the problem. It's really close to the responsibility center discipline stuff, where they have to take responsibility. They have to figure out what they want to do to fix the problem that's going on. I'm just there to facilitate. If there's something I need to do to help them fix that problem or something I need to provide for them, that's what I'm there to do. But it's them, they have to come up with that solution. And I let them try all number of things. Sometimes they tell me, I'm just going to put my phone back in my pocket and I'm not going to touch it. I know that that's probably not how that's going to play out, but I'm going to let them try. Then if we come back, if we have the same problem, then the next day, maybe the 2 days later, okay, that didn't work. Just keeping it in your pocket and ignoring it didn't work. What can we do next? You let them come up with their own solution. They have to have agency in the choice. Otherwise, you're just the big mean teacher taking away their phone and making them do something they don't want to do. And then you lose them for the rest of the day. They're not engaged in anything. During that hallway conversation is if they need more time than I can give them in class to get something fixed, or maybe they can't come up with an idea to fix something, that's when we ask them to go to the refocus room. The refocus room is different than ISS. I'm kind of going into your spot. Is that all right? Okay. It's different than ISS. They go down there, and ISS is like a jail sentence. You're here to serve a certain amount of time. You get ISS for 3 days, you're in there for 3 days. With the refocus room, it's up to them. I ask them to go to the refocus room. They get a problem-solving contract, which Ms. Larson handed out to all of you. And they go down there until they figure out a solution to their problem. There's someone down there to help them if they need it. And then once they come up with the solution, then they come back up to me and we have a conversation before they get to come back into the room. I have to make sure that what their solution that they came up with is appropriate for the classroom. It's appropriate for what's going on. It's appropriate for the class in general. The 3 redirects and the refocus room, the problem-solving contract, all of that is school-wide. We teach them how to do it in Discovery, and we do it a lot in Discovery to get them used to it, but that's school-wide. So if they're in math class and they've got the phone out, it's the same situation. 2 redirects, hallway conversation, can you fix it? Do you need help? Then it's down to refocus. And the problem-solving contracts kind of walk them through the 5 steps to problem solving. It walks them through and helps them out before we get to that module. So it's kind of just an aid for them to get them through that. All right. Thank you.
The only thing I would add with the problem-solving contracts is at the middle school level for our high school prep, they are required to take them home, get them signed by a parent and come back, just so that way we're having that ongoing communication with families. So attendance is the next piece of information here. We are striving. We have a hefty goal of 95% attendance or higher. What that boils down to is we are asking students to miss less than 4 days per quarter. As you know, you sit in all of these meetings. That is a huge ask some families, but that is our goal. When it comes to Discovery, what we present to families is if a student misses 4 days, we start kind of watching to see if they can pass Discovery. There is so much interactive components of the Discovery course that it is very difficult for students to pass if they are missing more than that. The scenario that we present to families is at 4 days, 4 or 5 days, let's say influenza hits your house, like that is a very common thing. Influenza A is going around. You are gone for a week, but every other day you are there, you're participating, you're producing, you're doing all the great things that we're asking. We definitely are going to make sure that you're staying in that class and do everything we can to support you. The flip side, let's say maybe another family gets influenza A, they're also out for 5 days, but they're on day like 7, 8, 9, 10. We're spending a lot of time in refocus. We're spending a lot of time on third floor bathroom. We are not engaged in our learning. We may start looking at some rescheduling options for those students. The other thing with attendance, we have a closed campus, which is different from Central and Stevens. We present that to our students. We normally get some eye rolls in there. But then once they get used to it, for the most part, they do okay. And we just present it. In 30 minutes, you don't have a very long to go to lunch. If you let me leave every day for 30 minutes, I might not want to come back on time either. And so life happens. You can get behind a train, your car can break down. We just want to eliminate those obstacles for you. So the next piece is what we do if Discovery is not working so hot for students. Every student is on a different path. We have heard about that all evening. So ideally, students pass the first time, right? That's the plan. That's what we would like to happen. If that is not on that student's if it's not their plan that quarter, we will look at rescheduling. We have a classroom in our building, a program within a program that we're building called Eagle's Nest. If a student is rescheduled out of Discovery for that quarter, they are rescheduled into Eagle's Nest. We open up Edgenuity classes if they don't have some already. They are able to keep working towards graduation requirements through the structure of a class. Eagle's Nest, we offer some Discovery Light components to that. We do some circle ups, we do goal setting, we kind of present maybe some of the same curriculum in a slightly different way, now we're not only trying to meet them where they're at, we're trying to add some courses on them, and then we're trying to pre-teach some of the behaviors in the lessons that maybe they started to fail at in the Discovery class. They get re-enrolled back in Discovery for that following quarter. So the second time around, the goal is that it's going to work even better. If that doesn't work, then we may start looking at some different educational opportunities. Just kind of depends on where they're at, right? Like if the second time around, we feel that they are making growth, but that growth is just small in steps, we may have them go back to Discovery for another round. We do have some students that are on round 3, and we do have a student that is on round 4. They have kind of cycled back through that Discovery class. We sprinkle in the academics and come right back to the behaviors at hand. All of our educational school, right? We're in person, so we want in-person instruction. We utilize Canvas like every other school in the district, the middle schools and the high schools. So we coordinate all of that, but really we strive to be in person. Parents still have the same rights. They can still access Canvas. Canvas is uploaded to Skyward, just like it is at Central and Stevens. Once they graduate Discovery, once we get these young people through the skills that they need, and we are hoping that they are well on their way, they go into a 5-period day. We run on quarters. So we have 5 periods. We're in a block format, 30-minute lunch. So that means we stop and start every single quarter with new students. We have just found for our students, it works a little better to focus their attention in on 5 class periods versus 8. They just seem to do a little better with that. When students commit to RCAA, we are asking them to commit through graduation. The last thing we want to happen is for students to start maybe at Central and then come to RCAA and then come to Stevens. Every transition, there's an opportunity to lose education and credits. And so we just want to kind of slow that down just a little bit. If the need arises, maybe there's an exception to the rule, they can transfer back to their home school, their home attendance school, either at semester or at the beginning of the year. Central and Stevens are all moving towards semester classes next quarter. I'm sorry, you guys, my son is calling and texting. His ride is, we're behind schedule, so. So they can transfer at semester or at the year time, if need be, but we definitely want to, keep them if the educational facility is working here. And with that, I have Mr. Binder with all his great data. You ready?
Okay.
It's right there too, because it's kind of hard to see.
I saw some questions.
Jamie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it's really quick. Just it went back to the 5 A's, and I just wondered if there is space for cultural sensitivity, particularly on the appropriate feedback and appropriate eye contact, because that can vary from a cultural standpoint. So I just wondered if that plays into that at all very often.
It does. I've had a couple parents during intake meetings come up and express, eye contact especially was a big one. That, wanting to know what that looks like. And I explained to them, appropriate eye contact is defined by between the student and myself. So it's going to look different for every student. And I'm very honest with the parents and the students. I don't find it appropriate to sit there and just stare at me the entire time. It makes me feel awkward. And so I always ask them, what do you want to define appropriate eye contact as? I had one student who they expressed I'm not going to look you in the eyes because that's a sign of respect, that I'm not looking you in the eyes. When I look you in the eyes, then that's a sign of aggression. I don't know if that was a cultural thing or just a personal thing, but we talked it over, we worked it out, and I was okay with that. And so it just kind of is based on what do you define as appropriate? What does the student, what does that family define as appropriate? And we've had a couple conversations with different families and worked it out real quick, and it's never been an issue.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, your thoroughness.
Okay, before we move on, is this the last section? There's nothing else after RCAA. Okay.
No, and we're almost done. We just have a little bit of data and then we're good.
Okay.
And I successfully unlocked my car from my phone, so my kid can sit in there.
Technology.
Thank you for technology. Good.
So I do get a little excited about the data, but we'll keep it brief. I was doing more back there at 8 o'clock at night. It's fun. But I think what's really interesting in this picture that we have, or what this paints, is that we don't really know where our students are going in this program because it's our first year. We haven't solved everything because it's our first year. And I have to remind myself that we've only been at this really 3 quarters and we haven't solved it all. We've solved a lot, but we haven't solved it all. What's really pretty in this data here is really when we look at the pass rate of full-time students in the course, we see that if they stay in the course the full 9 weeks, a lot of them are passing. And what we're seeing is that translates into our building, into the program, that they are successful in the rest of their classes, or at least that's our hope. And so in a year or two, we can come back with our program data, but right now we have our course data. And so we see that if they have a pass rate of full-time students, we're in that 83, 70, 92% of students. Also in the picture that you're seeing here is that the first quarter, we brought our entire school through this program. We had the option of just kind of going about it for 2 or 3 years, but we made the choice, the hard choice, to bring 175 students through Discovery. And that was multiple cohorts. All of our teachers were teaching and got everyone on board so that we kind of jump-started that culture. There's a few, maybe 30 students that we held back that were graduating that first quarter that didn't have to do this. So a huge pass rate. The other part of this that I would be remiss if we didn't talk about is that there's a compound unsuccessful rate. So these are students that were either removed for a factor or failed out. And those students weren't removed from our school, they're removed to that Eagles Nest program that they were talking about. So they had success elsewhere that wasn't within the class itself. So we're still seeing that success within our program. What we'll see at the end of this data cycle, really looking at the end of this year, is how many of those students stayed with us, transferred. We're really seeing that retention's there. We're seeing graduation, that we're graduating students at each quarter as we go through. Very similar is our communications data, that's our other data point that we can look at. And it's the same pass rate. I mean, we see that those students that stay in the entire time are passing. We do have a few students that had a repeat discovery but already passed communications, so we have viability of using Edgenuity to replace some of those credits for them. But it's the same data that we see that those unsuccessful, it's really the same students that we're catching them elsewhere, and we're excited to look at the rest of the data at the end of the year for the program so as we look at all that. I think that was all my data. I have so much more data, but it's 8 o'clock.
Well, it's 8 o'clock. We want to respect your time. We all have things going on. We're an hour past. So we definitely will answer any questions. We live and breathe the discovery every single day. We can each share stories of success and frustrations, but ultimately we are here for you. So we are here to answer any questions if you have any.
Was that data just high school or was that middle school too?
That was just high school.
Okay,
Yep.
and this whole presentation has mostly been just high school.
Well, there's crossover between Discovery and high school and middle school. We did a little bit more focus on the high school component just because it directly ties into graduation. But all of the units, the course structure for Discovery is the same in the middle school program. They do move a little bit slower, as you can imagine, they're younger. And so like some of the communication models, they need a lot more role playing. They need a lot more practice for those skills. But the course structure in itself is the same. We do not add the communications is not included in the middle school program, the same as the high school program. They still work on journal entries and that piece of it. It just isn't a separate course at that middle school level.
Okay. I want to practice good attending skills, but I can recognize that it's very late. I would love an update on how the middle school program is working, because I've heard several things around just from various people and would love to hear.
Yep.
What's
So we
happening.
currently have 24 students enrolled in our middle school program. They go through Discovery just the way it is. We have been referral based all school year for middle school and high school. We are going to open that process up a little bit for both programs next year. So that way parents can call our school and we can help initiate that process. So that way, I just think we all think parents need to have opportunities to start the referral process. So we're going to move that way for our middle school as well. And I do think that will assist in the registration and the enrollment process. 24 students, there is definitely some growth opportunities within our middle school program. We actually tied in another whole tiered approach for this quarter because we were identifying there were some things not working. So when students graduate from Discovery, they go into cohort 1. What we ended up having to do for quarter 4 is we opened up a cohort 2, which is like a tier 2 approach to that. And so we just integrated academics with heavier Discovery. So they passed Discovery, but they're not quite living and breathing Discovery yet. So we needed to come up with another whole plan. So just like the high school program, our middle school program is very much in its infancy stages. And so we just have to keep going back to the drawing board, pivot, adjust, make some accommodations and move on. But yeah, I can do a whole presentation on middle school as well. Yep, and you guys are more than welcome. We do informational meetings at the beginning of every quarter. Of course, this year we're kind of wrapping up, but they'll start back up in August, and you guys are always more than welcome. You can sit in the audience and be just like a parent like everybody else.
I'd love that if we got an invitation to that in August.
All right, Dr. Kelsey.
Just to clarify a couple things, we know that the middle school will take longer to develop and to become established versus the high school. I would say it's fair to say we don't have as many students attending and going through the program as we expected. And I think from my conversations with Ms. Kanta, it's hard. It is really hard with the middle school. And
It is a whole different set of challenges in some ways.
yes. But still encouraged by the work they've been doing and the progress they've been making at that level. I think it's extremely valuable. I think the way she's looking at registration now at both middle school and high school is gonna make a difference in terms of helping parents be aware, but giving them a little more direct line of enrollment versus coming through the home school. So that matters. So that access is good. So just providing a little context there and just very thankful for the work that they do. I know it's not easy. We're going to continue to support training for them. The programs that we watched as a model for this were extremely well established, and it really makes you go, wow, this is really awesome. And then the kids show up and you're like, whoa, this is really, really hard. So I think they made a lot of progress, and excited to see how they finish the year and can keep showing us data and learnings that they have this is essential for our kids, so.
No, well, I'm not.
No.
It definitely, you identify each quarter, we have new students coming in, and so, that is interesting, having a quarter-based school. The dynamics of your school changes 4 times a year. And that has great opportunities because you get new students, to help set that culture. I think one of the differences between the high school program and the middle school program, the high school program already had a culture built in. So we were just modifying some of the things that we didn't want in that culture. The middle school is a brand new culture coming in. And so we're establishing everything from ground zero, which just has its own set of challenges. But we do have ongoing training, not only for myself and my administrative assistant, but for our teachers and our students. It starts with us, and so we have to continue with that training. We have a school tour. I'm just waiting for the final April 23rd that Mr. Morton and a team is going to go check out Centennial High School. They're kind of what we call the mothership. They've been doing this since 1990. They kind of have it figured out. So they're kind of our pie in the sky. This is what we are trying to build to. And then we have a trainer coming back in the end of July. We have 2 weeks set aside, and our trainer will come back and work with the new hires coming into our CAA and our returning hires, because we'll be at different levels. So to set that groundwork and build that foundation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Another
you.
great report. All right, board, we have just a few more minutes of work to do. I'm going to forego the other, but so Dr. Strasser, to answer your question, and for what you need tonight, board, I'm going to make a motion. I make a motion that we support the administration in the programming that they presented to us on tonight, with bringing back detailed information and filling in the things that they need to do to bring back to the board at a regular board meeting.
Motion.
So I made the motion, so I need a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? So I want to be clear, Dr. Strasser, that this motion is supporting what we've heard tonight to continue. It doesn't include financing. And I think your next step from here is whatever program you all are ready to bring forward. If you bring that as a board informational item, where we will get the numbers and get the details that you don't have tonight, and really be able to understand that program, then once that's ready, the board approves that, then it'll be ready for consent agenda. Board, as you all think about your vote on tonight, I think this motion is very important, because it's no secret that Dr. Thompson will be here June 23rd. And it's important that as you all inform her of what she's doing, that she knows the board is in support of what you all are doing, so that you don't feel, oh no, we'll have this official motion, yeah, that you all know, and Dr. Thompson will know that we supported what's going on. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Okay, Sheila Shirley, I get confused. All right, we want Shirley, roll call.
Troy,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Katie.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for every presentation was wonderful. We heard a lot of good stuff that's and in fact, a lot of good stuff that's going to help us with the bond and recruitment of students, a lot of good things. So keep up the good work. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion.
Roll call, please.
Troy,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Christine,
Yep.
Donna,
Yes.
and Katie.
Yep.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.